With less than 3 weeks to go before Virginia voters elect a new governor, Democratic nominee Ralph Northam sent out a campaign flyer this week promoting the top of the party's ticket that omitted the name and picture of Justin Fairfax, his black running mate. The decision to remove Fairfax, the Democratic nominee for lieutenant governor, came at the request of officials at Labor's International Union of North America, or UNA, who decided against endorsing Fairfax because of his refusal to support pet projects backed by the union, including 2 natural gas pipelines that are proposed to cross Virginia. Yielding to the union demands and sending out the campaign literature, which states it was produced and paid for by the Northam campaign, displays a shockingly tone-deaf insensitivity to black Virginia voters, said Quentin James, executive director of the Collective, a Washington, D.C.-based political action committee that seeks to elect black candidates to statewide offices. It sends a signal across the state that we, as black voters, are expendable. This is a slap in the face to Justin and to black voters in Virginia, James said in an interview. It sends a signal across the state that we, as black voters, are expendable. Surely Virginia Democrats don't want to send that message to black voters, who are expected to cast pivotal ballots in the November 7th election. According to a recent report in Mother Jones, black voters make up 1/5 of the state's electorate and were largely responsible for current Democratic Gov. Terry McAuliffe's narrow victory in 2013. As one of only 2 states holding elections this year, many political observers are watching the November 7th election in Virginia as a bellwether of Democratic strength for the upcoming 2018 midterm elections. Virginia was the only southern state that rejected Donald Trump and supported Hillary Clinton in last year's presidential election. Given what's at stake for Democrats, it's mind-boggling that someone inside the Northam campaign didn't kill the flyers before they were printed, let alone distributed. The decision was made to appease UNA, which contributed about $600,000 to the coordinated state Democratic campaign, said a Northam campaign official who agreed to speak freely only without attribution. A statement released by the Northam campaign praised Fairfax as clearly the best choice for lieutenant governor in November, but also defended the controversial ad. One piece of literature carried by UNA canvases does not change that, the statement said. Out of over 3 million pieces of literature printed for the campaign, the piece for UNA canvases constituted roughly 0.5% of the literature printed. These doors have also received literature for the full ticket, as have roughly 1.5 million households in Virginia. The Northam official declined to address the appearance of racial bias by the campaign for sending out literature that included 2 white Democrats but deleted the lone black Democrat on the ticket. I think that's the wrong question to ask, the official said. In an interview with the Washington Post, Fairfax characterized the campaign's decision to omit him from the flyers as a mistake, but stopped short of calling out racial bias. Calls and emails for comments from UNA officials were not immediately returned. However, Brian Petruska, general counsel with the UNA Mid-Atlantic Region Organizing Coalition, told the Richmond Times-Dispatch that the union asked the Northam campaign to take Fairfax's name off similar flyers so that its members could distribute them. That request was made, he told the newspaper, because Union didn't endorse for his failure to complete a questionnaire and wasn't. Richmond, Virginia. A federal appeals court has found that a towering cross on a Maryland state highway median just outside Washington violates the U.S. Constitution. A 3-judge panel of the 4th U.S. Circuit of Appeals in Richmond ruled Wednesday that the 92-year-old monument known as the Bladensburg Cross amounts to government sponsorship of a particular religion. The court overturned a 2016 ruling that said it was meant in mostly as a secular commemoration of World War I. The American Humanist Association said the 40-foot 12-meter-tall cross endorses Christianity while ignoring non-Christian veterans, according to the latest report from an official U.S. government watchdog. Promising Afghan recruits, who had been sent stateside for military training, have fled in substantial numbers. The Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction (SIGAR) found that at least 152 Afghan trainees have gone AWOL after arriving on stateside military bases. As many as 83 of those trainees remain unaccounted for. Most often, SIGAR found AWOL Afghans cite personal family safety concerns and perceived job insecurity in Afghanistan following training. 5 Afghan trainees told SIGAR that their lives were in danger from the Taliban because of the basic fact that they came to America for training. 3 others said the Taliban threatened the families for the same reason. A 4th reported an actual attack on his relatives. Currently, the perception amongst Afghan students is that Canada is a sanctuary for absconders, SIGAR noted. An astonishing 103 of the 152 known AWOL trainees are officers, specifically junior officers responsible for leading the platoons and companies tasked with frontline combat against the Taliban. Another 19 are non-commissioned officers, the sergeants who, Joe Arpaio at vote-a-Rama D. Franklin, file. A federal judge has refused to vacate ex-Sheriff Joe Arpaio's criminal conviction. Arpaio was pardoned by President Donald Trump in August after being convicted of criminal contempt over violating a court order to stop racially profiling Latinos. Arpaio's attorneys have appealed the judge's ruling to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. A federal judge on Thursday declined to throw out the guilty verdict from a criminal case against former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was pardoned by President Donald Trump in August. U.S. District Judge Susan Bolton said in her ruling that the presidential pardon may have granted Arpaio mercy, but not the power of judicial record-keeping. The pardon undoubtedly spared defendant from any punishment that might otherwise have been imposed, Bolton wrote. It did not, however, revise the historical facts of this case. Arpaio was convicted in July of criminal contempt over violating a court order to stop racially profiling Latinos, but was pardoned before his scheduled sentencing. Arpaio has vowed to fight Bolton's ruling, telling Capital Media Services that the issue is not going to be dropped. A presidential pardon does not remove a criminal conviction. Arpaio's attorneys have already appealed Bolton's decision to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. One of his lawyers, Jack Wilenko, has argued that should the conviction be allowed to stand, it could be used against Arpaio in a future civil or criminal case. In her ruling, Bolton wrote that the purpose of a pardon was not to wipe a defendant's record clean or blot out guilt, but to prevent further punishment for the crime and restore his or her civil rights. It does not erase a judgment of conviction, or its underlying legal and factual findings, she wrote. Instead, a pardon implies that the defendant did indeed commit a crime, and accepting a pardon is therefore a confession of it. Donald Trump and former Maricopa County, Arizona, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Apfotamari Altafa, file. Arpaio's pardon has been fraught with controversy. Trump had made the unusual move of granting it before Arpaio had even been sentenced, and it bypassed the typical Justice Department process. Pardons are usually requested through formal applications submitted to the Office of the Pardon Attorney at least 5 years after the applicant is sentenced. Arpaio, an 85-year-old who called himself America's toughest sheriff, is best known for illegally detaining Latinos in Maricopa County. Sergeant David T. Johnson, 25, of Miami Gardens, Florida, was killed on October 4 in southwest Niger. Department of Defense White House Chief of Staff John F. Kelly and Rep. Frederica S. Wilson DFLA are not fans of one another, and the tension between the two Washington politicos is taking attention further away from the issue that most recently connected them, the ambush in Niger earlier this month that killed Sergeant David Johnson. Wilson listened in on a call between Michelle Johnson, the widow of Johnson, and President Trump, where the commander-in-chief allegedly told her that her deceased husband knew what he signed up for. The fallen soldier's mother confirmed the congresswoman's account, but Trump and Kelly denied it and accused Wilson of being dishonest. And a congresswoman stood up, and in a long tradition of empty barrels making the most noise, stood up there in all of that and talked about how she was instrumental in getting the funding for that building, a Miramar, Florida FBI building named after 2 slain FBI agents, and how she took care of her constituents because she got the money, and she just called up President Obama, and on that phone call, he gave the money, the $20 million, to build the building, and she sat down, Kelly said Thursday, after sharing he was stunned to hear that Wilson listened in on the call between President Trump and a military widow. Wilson was not pleased at being likened to an empty barrel. "I think that's a racist term, too," she told CNN's Alison Camerota. "I'm thinking about that. When we looked it up in the dictionary, I had never heard of an empty barrel, and I don't like to be dragged into something like that." The saying "an empty barrel makes the most noise" refers to the fact that if an empty barrel falls over or is tapped, the sound emanating from it will be louder than a full barrel because an empty barrel is hollow. Kelly was suggesting that Wilson lacked substance and was self-serving, based on his account of Wilson at the FBI building ceremony. The challenge is that the Miami Herald said Kelly's retelling of the 2015 event is inaccurate. And the Sun-Sentinel published a video showing that Kelly misrepresented Wilson's speech. Wilson was appalled by Kelly's attack. "I feel sorry for General Kelly," she said on CNN. "He has my sympathy for the loss of his son, but he can't just go on TV and lie on me. I was not even in Congress in 2009 when the money for the building was secured, so that's a lie. How dare he?" A story about a Democratic lawmaker accusing the White House Chief of Staff of being racist, while the Chief of Staff accuses her of taking credit for something she said she could not have possibly done, is the latest reminder of how far this story has gotten from the real issue. So far, all we know is that Johnson was one of 4 U.S. Special Forces soldiers gunned down at the border of Niger and Mali in the deadliest combat incident since Trump took office. The president, who often highlights his love and respect for the military, waited 12 days before he publicly acknowledged the tragedy. According to the Associated Press, no extremist group has claimed responsibility for the deaths, but the attack appears to be the work of the Islamic State of the Sahel, a splinter group of extremists loyal to the Islamic State group based in nearby Mali. The Islamic militants came on motorcycles toting rocket-propelled grenades and heavy machine guns before shattering the windows of the unarmored U.S. trucks. Afghan troops traveling to the U.S. for training are going absent without leave at double the previous rate, raising security concerns in the homeland as well as in the U.S., according to a Pentagon watchdog. The percentage of Afghan trainees in the U.S. going AWOL doubled last year to 13% from the historical average of 6 to 7%, the U.S. Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction said in a report Friday. AWOL means the trainee is absent from scheduled activities for more than 24 hours without proper authority. Some of the missing trainees have never been tracked down and could pose a risk to the U.S., according to the report. Given the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan and the fact that Afghan trainees who violate the terms of the visas suffer virtually no consequences for going AWOL, the Defense Department believes that the AWOL rate is likely to either remain steady or increase, the report said. Through July, Congress has appropriated $68.3 billion to the Pentagon to train and equip the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces, which sends personnel to the U.S. to gain expertise in areas such as aviation and counter-drug efforts. Nearly 16 years after U.S. troops first arrived in Afghanistan to oust the Taliban government, the program is part of an effort to shift more responsibility for the country's security to local forces. From August 2005 through March of this year, a total of 253,977 foreign trainees arrived in the U.S. for training, according to the report. Of those, 2,537 were from Afghanistan. In the period, 320 foreign trainees went AWOL, with 152 of them, almost half, being Afghan. Limited vetting among the 152 Afghan trainees who went absent, 83 fled the U.S. or remain unaccounted for. The limited vetting of Afghan trainees, and the restrictions of the investigatory and asylum processes, may pose a security risk to the United States when trainees go AWOL, the Inspector General said. In interviews with those who left, researchers said trainees most often cited personal and family safety concerns as well as perceived job insecurity in Afghanistan as reasons. The report's findings drew criticism on Capitol Hill. Senator Chuck Grassley, an Iowa Republican and chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, sent a letter to the State Department and Homeland Security, while Senator Claire McCaskill, a Missouri Democrat and ranking member of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, wrote to the Defense Department. Both raised questions about the government's inability to keep track of trainees and the screening process. There are so many problems here, Grassley said in a statement. This is bad for national security, bad for Afghan military readiness, and bad for U.S. taxpayers. If the U.S. government can't keep tabs on foreign military trainees, maybe the training should take place in the United States. Those who have run off during the training also have hindered the operational readiness of home units, because it's led to a reduction in courses being offered to Afghan troops, the report found. As recently as August, U.S. Customs and Border Protection caught 4 AWOL Afghan trainees in Washington state. It is clear that Afghan trainees go AWOL while in the United States at a far higher rate than do trainees from any. White House aides were hustling to secure an up-to-date list of soldiers who died this year after President Trump claimed in an interview earlier this week that he had contacted the families of virtually everybody in the military who was killed since he took office. Roll Call reported Friday. An email exchange between the White House and Defense Secretary James Norman Mattis overnight. Defense Tillerson. Trump deny report of RIF. Tillerson says he never considered resigning. Trump expresses total confidence in Secretary Rubio. Asks Army to kick out West Point grad. Rubio asks Army to kick out West Point grad with pro-communist posts. Trump honor Obama's agreement to release Guantanamo detainee. More's office reportedly shows the White House asking the department for information regarding the families of service members killed after the president's inauguration in January. The White House asked for the information on surviving family members so Trump could make sure to contact all of them, according to Roll Call. The report said that the email exchange came hours after the president said in a Fox News radio interview Tuesday that he had called nearly all of the families of those killed since he took office. I have called, I believe, everybody, but certainly he'll use the word virtually everybody, he said. A White House spokesman responded to the report, telling The Hill, the White House ensured that the president had contacted all families of soldiers killed in action that had been presented to him through existing protocols. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders used similar language earlier this week, saying that Trump had made contact with all of the families that have been presented to him through the White House military office. Multiple media organizations began reaching out to Gold Star families this week after Trump claimed during a press conference on Monday that Barack Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, George W. Bush honors father at benefit for hurricane victims. Dem Senator, I miss every one of our last 5 presidents. All 5 living former presidents appear at hurricane relief benefit concert. Moore and other past presidents didn't call the families of fallen soldiers. The White House was pushed to defend Trump's handling of such calls after Rep. Frederica Wilson overnight health care Senate want vote on Obamacare repeal bill. GOP chairman ready to resume bipartisan talk. Republicans nix idea of pairing repeal with tax reform. Lawmaker warned officials before retirement home tragedy. Florida Dem abomination that seniors were left at nursing home where 8 died more. DFLA said that Trump told the widow of one of the 4 U.S. soldiers killed in Niger early. Aiken County, SCWJBF. A father is in jail after police say he encouraged his 3-year-old son to shoot another man. On Tuesday night, Aiken County deputies arrested Albert Monted Davis, 31, and charged him with the murder of 24-year-old Timothy Raheem Johnson. Why would somebody give a 3-year-old a gun? Suma McCollum, an Aiken County resident, told WJBF News Channel 6. Aiken County Sheriff Michael Hunt says Johnson was shot with a stolen handgun. Hunt says Davis provided his 3-year-old son with a weapon and gave him gruesome instructions. He gave the child the gun and told the child to get him. Hunt said. Sheriff Hunt says Davis encouraged the toddler to chase Johnson around the yard outside a home on Beckham Road with a loaded weapon. That's when the gun went off and killed Johnson. I don't see any time where it's proper to give a child a gun and tell him to get somebody, said Hunt. Whether you mean it or not. McCollum heard the gunshot, but she says unfortunately that's become the norm around here. Still, the mother of 5 can't believe it was a 3-year-old who pulled the trigger. I would give my 4-year-old a gun. I would give my 5-year-old a gun, not even my 14-year-old. McCollum told WJBF News Channel 6. Hunt says this is an incident he never thought would come across his desk, but he's going to make sure Davis is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I mean, are you just as stunned as everyone else? Asked WJBF News Channel 6's Stephanie Bornman. We are stunned. The bottom line is don't give a kid a gun and tell him to go get somebody. Hunt said, this whole thing started by folks hanging out, probably not doing the right thing to start with, and giving a chance. Close the Air Force's ranks grew during the 2016 fiscal year, so why is there still a shortage of pilots? The Air Force is currently 1,500 pilots short of the 20,300 it is mandated to have. USATODAYWASHINGTON. President Trump signed an executive order Friday allowing the Air Force to recall as many as 1,000 retired pilots to active duty to address a shortage in combat flyers, the White House and Pentagon announced. By law, only 25 retired officers can be brought back to serve in any one branch. Trump's order removes those caps by expanding a state of national emergency declared by President George W. Bush after 9/11, signaling what could be a significant escalation in the 16-year-old global war on terror. We anticipate that the Secretary of Defense will delegate the authority to the Secretary of the Air Force to recall up to 1,000 retired pilots for up to 3 years, Navy CDR. Gary Ross, a Pentagon spokesman, said in a statement, but the executive order itself is not specific to the Air Force, and could conceivably be used in the future to call up more officers and in other branches. More Army is accepting more low-quality recruits, giving waivers for marijuana to hit targets. The Air Force needs about 1,500 pilots more than it has. Bonus programs and other incentives have not made up the shortfall. The Air Force has been at the forefront of the Pentagon's battle against the Islamic State, flying most of the combat sorties in Iraq and Syria since 2014. In June, Sen. John McCain, RARAS, labeled the pilot shortage a crisis that would prevent the Air Force from fulfilling its mission. This is a full-blown crisis, and if left unresolved, it will call into question the Air Force's ability to accomplish its mission, said McCain. Chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Richard Abulafia, an aviation analyst and vice president of the Teal Group, said the shortage stemmed from a number of issues. One is competition from commercial airlines, Abulafia said. Another is delays and funding shortfalls in training. And, due to military operations, utilization of the aircraft and crew has been higher than expected. More a permanent emergency. Trump becomes third president to renew extraordinary post-9/11 powers in Capitol Hill. Sen. Lindsey Graham, RSC, and a member of Armed Services Committee, said that the fight against Islamic State and Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists will be expanding. He spoke to reporters while speaking about the 4 U.S. soldiers killed October 4 in Niger. Counter-terrorism rules under President Obama had been too restrictive and ineffective, Graham said. The war is morphing, Graham said. You're going to The Air Force could recall up to 1,000 retired pilots after President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at addressing what the Pentagon has described as an acute shortage of pilots. The order, which Trump signed Friday, amends an emergency declaration signed by George W. Bush after the September 11, 2001 terror attacks. Under current law, the Air Force is limited to recalling just 25 pilots. The order signed by Trump temporarily removes that cap for all branches of the military. A Pentagon spokesman, Navy CMDR, Gary Ross, said in a statement that the Air Force is currently short approximately 1,500 pilots of its requirements. We anticipate that the Secretary of Defense will delegate the authority to the Secretary of the Air Force to recall up to 1,000 retired pilots for up to 3 years, Ross said. The pilot supply shortage is a national-level challenge that could have adverse effects on all aspects of both the government and commercial aviation sectors for years to come. In August, Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson confirmed that the service was short 1,555 pilots of its requirements, including 1,211 fighter pilots. At the time, Wilson announced the Air Force was increasing incentive pay to officers and enlisted crew members for the first time in 18 years. The service also had more. Ayla, a convicted cop killer who sued Alabama over its lethal injection method, was put to death Thursday night, but not before he cursed at the state and said, "I hate you." As the procedure began, Tory Twain McNabb, 40, raised both of his middle fingers in a show of defiance. McNabb's attorneys had unsuccessfully sought to stop the execution since he is one of several inmates in an ongoing lawsuit challenging the humaneness of the state's lethal injection procedure. McNabb was convicted of killing Montgomery police officer Anderson Gordon in 1997. He shot Gordon 5 times as the officer sat in his patrol car after arriving at a traffic accident McNabb caused while fleeing a bail bondsman, prosecutors said. In this undated photo released by the Montgomery, Alabama police officer Anderson Gordon poses for an official photograph. Gordon was killed in 1997 when he was shot by Tory Twain McNabb fleeing a bail bondsman. Gordon's relatives said in a statement that the 30-year-old officer, known as Brother, was devoted to his family, his 2 children and his work as a police officer. Over 20 years ago, we lost a companion, a father, a brother and friend who only wanted to make a difference in his community, the statement read. Although the wounds of having a family member murdered can never be healed, through this tragedy, the Gordon family has remained strong and will continue to be resilient. The inmates in the lawsuit have argued that the sedative midazolam does not reliably render a person unconscious before subsequent drugs stop the lungs and heart. They point to an execution last December during which an Alabama inmate coughed and heaved for the first 13 minutes of the procedure. McNabb appeared to be breathing for the first 20 minutes of the 35-minute-long procedure. He later appeared to move his head, grimace and raise his arms after 2 consciousness checks in which a guard pinches his arm, says his name and pulls back his eyelid before eventually becoming still. His family members and attorneys who witnessed the execution expressed repeated concerns to each other that he was still conscious during the lethal injection. "He's going to wake up," one of McNabb's family members whispered. He was pronounced dead at 9:38 p.m. CDT, authorities said. Alabama Commissioner Jeff Dunn said he was confident the movements after the second consciousness check were involuntary and that McNabb was not awake. A lawyer for McNabb argued that it would be wrong to carry out the execution while proceedings continue in McNabb's lawsuit. The state argued that the inmates are unlikely to prevail in their claims since the U.S. Supreme Court has allowed other executions, including 4 in Alabama, to proceed using midazolam. Governor Abbott proudly signs anti-legislation into law. Action signals Texas' strong support for Israel. Governor Greg Abbott today signed into law House Bill 89 HB 89, known as the Anti-Boycott, Divestments, and Sanctions Bill, which prohibits all state agencies from contracting with, and certain public funds from investing in, companies that boycott Israel. The governor hosted the bill signing at the Jewish Community Center in Austin. Today also marks Israel's Independence Day. I am proud to have commemorated Israel's Independence Day by signing into law anti-legislation in Texas, said Governor Abbott. As Israel's #1 trading partner in the United States, Texas is proud to reaffirm its support for the people of Israel, and we will continue to build on our historic partnership. Anti-Israel policies are anti-Texas policies, and we will not tolerate such actions against an important ally. I would like to thank Rep. Phil King and Sen. Brandon Creighton for the work and commitment in authoring this important legislation. The bill, authored by Representative Phil King, prohibits the state of Texas from conducting business with companies involved in the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against Israel. After the bill becomes law, it ensures that certain public funds are not invested in any entities part by a nearly century-old 40-foot cross honoring World War I veterans in Bladensburg, MD, represents an unconstitutional endorsement of religion, a divided federal appeals court ruled Wednesday. In a 21 decision, a panel of the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia, a federal appeals court ruled Wednesday that a 40-foot cross-hat war memorial that has stood on public land in Maryland for nearly a century is unconstitutional because it excessively entangles the government with religion. A divided U.S. Court of Appeals from the 4th Circuit in Richmond, Virginia, found that the Bladensburg World War I Veterans Memorial, known locally as the Peace Cross, aggrandizes the Latin cross to the point that an observer would conclude the government entity that owns it is endorsing Christianity. The Latin cross is the core symbol of Christianity, the court wrote in a 33-page opinion that included photographs of the memorial. And here, it is 40 feet tall, prominently displayed in the center of one of the busiest intersections in Prince George County, Maryland, and maintained with thousands of dollars in government funds. The 21 ruling reverses a 2015 district court decision that found the purpose of the cross is not primarily religious and that the site has been used almost exclusively for celebrating federal holidays. Erected in 1925, the cross honors 49 Prince George County residents who died in World War I. The structure stands at the intersection of Route 450 and alternate US 1 on a rectangular base inscribed with the words valor, endurance, courage and devotion. The ruling Wednesday was a victory for the American Humanist Association, which filed the initial lawsuit. The Washington-based group advocates for the separation of church and state. Caption Government war memorials should respect all veterans, not just those from one religious group, Roy Speckhart, the group's executive director, said in a statement. The decision was a setback for the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, which owns the site and has spent $117,000 to maintain and repair it, and the American Legion. The commission, which serves Montgomery and Prince George counties, was created by the Maryland General Assembly in 1927. Adrian R. Gardner, the Commission's general counsel, said the agency is considering an appeal. For now, Gardner said in a statement, the disposition of the case is still pending, and the Commission has no immediate plan to make any changes relating to the memorial. The American Legion is represented in the case by the First Liberty Institute, a Texas group that says its mission is to defend and restore religious liberty across America, in our schools, for our churches, in the military, and throughout the public arena. Jeremy D. Wise, an attorney for the Institute, said the group is reviewing the decision and considering an appeal. I think it's very discouraging for the thousands of veterans across the country who have basically been told the war memorials are suspect if any religious imagery appears near them, D. Wise said. I think it's important that we honor veterans the way that veterans choose to honor themselves. The opinion was written by Judge Stephanie D. Thacker and joined by Judge James A. Wynn Jr. Supporters of the memorial have raised the impact an adverse decision could have on other sites, notably Arlington National Cemetery. Crosses are common on headstones and elsewhere at the cemetery. A 24-foot granite cross, the Canadian Cross of Sacrifice, is positioned near the tomb of the unknown soldier. The court dismissed the notion that the two sites are related. The crosses there are much smaller than the 40-foot-tall monolith at issue here, the court wrote. And, significantly, Arlington National Cemetery displays diverse religious symbols, both as monuments and on individual headstones. Chief Judge Roger L. Gregory, writing in dissent, questioned the legal significance of the cross size. In the majority's view, Tampa, Florida, WLS police investigating child pornography allegations in Florida found a large arsenal of weapons, explosives and ammunition, side by side with maps of 2 schools and a water treatment plant. Authorities believe they may have thwarted a massive attack. Neighbors said they had no idea what was going on next door. You never know, you don't know your neighbors, said neighbor Tim Klinsky. Police said the man being investigated, 24-year-old Randall Drake, was never on the radar. Drake has no criminal history and no history of mental problems, and lives with his parents just outside of Tampa. These really are the most concerning people because you don't know about them until they engage in devastating acts and kill a whole bunch of people, said Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri. 3 explosive devices, 10 rifles, 8 handguns, 2 shotguns, more than 15 knives, a baseball bat with nails, and even a crossbow were found in the home. He could have caused some serious damage, Gualtieri said. Detectives said they also found notes on how to build bombs, and a handwritten note that read, "I shall have my bloody revenge, and then the world will burn." Tampa, Florida, police believe the fatal shooting of a 20-year-old autistic man who took the wrong bus home from work on Thursday night is linked to 2 other suspicious deaths in a Florida neighborhood. The deaths, which took place in the same neighborhood over the past 10 days, prompted Tampa police to warn residents in the Seminole Heights neighborhood not to walk alone at night. And they've asked residents to leave porch light and other external lights on at night. Now we have someone terrorizing the neighborhood, interim Tampa Police Chief Brian Dugan said during a Friday news conference. He said the 3 victims have no ties to one another. Dugan asked the public to look at surveillance video of a man who was walking in the area on October 9 when Benjamin Mitchell, 22, was killed. On October 13, Monica Caridad Hoffer, 32, was found dead in a vacant lot. On Thursday night, officers were patrolling in the area when they heard gunshots. Dugan said they rushed to the area, where they found Anthony Tino Nybo dead on the sidewalk, about 100 yards 91 meters from where one of the other victims was killed. You can imagine the frustration of these officers to hear gunshots and not be able to find this person, Dugan said. He was in the prime of his life and was taken instantly. He said Nybo's parents became worried Thursday and called police when he didn't come home. Investigators have, by Karen Morford, Denver, CBS 4. The FBI has recovered a 3-month-old baby and a 5-year-old in Denver during a nationwide child sex trafficking investigation, credits CBS. The investigation, dubbed Operation Cross Country, includes Denver along with several cities across the U.S. Arapahoe investigator Daniel Steele was among those involved in the operation locally, credits CBS. We go out in an undercover capacity, and we try to make contact with youth, whether as a customer, sex buyer, a trafficker even, Steele said. Just 3 days ago, a suspect offered an undercover officer $600 in exchange for access to 2 children for sex. That male suspect was arrested and the children rescued. In video released by the FBI, a child's blanket and stuffed animal can be seen on the floor of the location of one of the busts, credits CBS. The investigation included online ads that undercover officers would respond to. The locations typically included hotels, casinos and street corners. Some 84 minors were recovered and 120 traffickers were arrested as part of the sting. A female from Russia was among those victims the FBI agents encountered in Denver. FBI Director Christopher Wray says that the agency is not only trying to take traffickers off the streets but to help the victims get out of the cycle of abuse, credits CBS. If you want to stop all this, stop what you're doing, stop this work, you can call that and they can do that for you. They can help you stay in the United States or go back home to family, said one FBI agent. At a news conference on Wednesday afternoon, FBI and local officials detailed the Innocence Lost Task Force operation. 17 children in Colorado were rescued during the operation. Arapahoe County District Attorney George Brockler was among the local officials who spoke about the operations. It's not just that someone is willing to sell someone, it's that there are buyers out there who are willing to engage in this, he said. Credits CBS. Investigators also arrested 4 pimps and 18 predators attempting to pay for sex with children. Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI in Denver, Todd Pooler, says this is just the beginning. If you are a sexual predator or sexually exploiting children, the FBI and law enforcement partners will find you. You can count on it, Pooler said. Karen Morford joined the CBS 4 team as a reporter in 2013. She covers a variety of stories in and around San Francisco, an annual effort to recover victims of child prostitution and draw attention to the problem of sex trafficking culminated in the arrests of 4 pimps and the rescue of 2 victims in the Bay Area, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children announced Wednesday. Between October 12 and Sunday, authorities across the United States arrested 120 suspects and recovered 84 victims as part of Operation Cross Country, now in its 11th year. There was a greater focus this time around on pimps, particularly those involved in the trafficking of minors. We at the FBI have no greater mission than to protect our nation's children from harm, FBI Director Christopher Wray said in a statement. Unfortunately, the number of traffickers arrested, and the number of children recovered, reinforces why we need to continue to do this important work. Stay up to date on breaking news with our mobile app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. This operation isn't just about taking traffickers off the street. It's about making sure we offer help and a way out to these young victims who find themselves caught in a vicious cycle of abuse. Locally, the FBI partnered with 22 agencies, including the San Jose, Oakland and San Francisco Police Departments, the Santa Clara, San Mateo and Marin County Sheriff's Offices, and the Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Alameda County District Attorney's Offices. In addition to arresting and citing 4 pimps and recovering 2 victims, authorities in the Bay Area also contacted, arrested or cited 27 women for prostitution, arrested or cited 12 male Johns, and arrested 5 men for solicitation of a minor, according to the FBI. The victims, who were rescued, a woman and a 17-year-old, are receiving services from agencies dedicated to assisting trafficking victims, according to the FBI. The women involved in prostitution who were contacted during the operation also were offered services. Reading this on your iPhone or iPad, check out our new Apple News app channel here and click the at the top of the page to save to your Apple News favorites. In Denver, a 3-month-old girl and her 5-year-old sister were recovered after a friend who was staying with the family made a deal with an undercover officer to sell both children for sex in exchange for $600, according to the FBI. Child sex trafficking is happening in every community across America, said National Center for Missing and Exploited Children CEO John Clark in a statement. We are working to combat this problem every day, he said, adding that his agency is proud to work with the FBI on Operation Cross Country to help find and recover child victims. The operation is part of the FBI's Innocence Lost National Initiative, which began in 2003 and has resulted in the identification and recovery of more than 6,500 children and the prosecution of traffickers, more than 30 of whom have received life sentences. Like our Facebook page for more conversation and news coverage from San Jose. You're invited to the main event. Atlanta-based rapper Gucci Mane and beauty fitness entrepreneur Keisha Kaoi are set to wed Tuesday at the Four Seasons Miami, and their extravagant nuptials will be aired in a 10-part wedding special on BET. According to the People exclusive clip of Gucci Mane and Keisha Kaoi are the main event, it seems as though the rapper doesn't like to hear the word budget, as he's busy promoting his latest album and prepping for the release of his tell-all autobiography, which dropped late last month. And that's just what a boss fiancé should do, Kaoi says. But it's not all glitz and glamour. From choosing the bridesmaids to discussing a potential prenup and pushing through venue complications due to the recent Hurricane Irma, which ripped through Miami in September, the special will take fans inside the wedding from start to finish. Gucci and I have been gearing up for this day for almost 7 years now, she says. This wedding must be perfect. I want a royal wedding, all white with diamonds and crystals. 112,216 heart ring. A post shared by Keisha Kaoi Davis at Keisha on October 16, 2017 at 617 MPDT. Gucci Mane popped the question to longtime girlfriend Kaoi in November 22, 2016 in front of thousands of NBA fans at the Atlanta Hawks game. Instead of planting a smooch on her face when the Kiss Cam segment popped up on the Jumbotron during a will the real First Lady please stand up? A strange conspiracy theory circulating on Twitter insists that Melania Trump has actually been replaced by a body double. The theory was originally posed by comedian Andrea Wagner Barton after the Trumps visited the U.S. Secret Service training facility in Beltsville, MD. Is it me? During his speech today, a decoy stood in for Melania, she wrote on Facebook. The idea was then picked up on Twitter on Wednesday. This is not Melania. To think they would go this far, try make us think it's her on TV is mind-blowing, wrote Joe Vargas. Makes me wonder what else is a lie. Others piped in with questions about the First Lady's oversized sunglasses and apparently suspicious hairstyle. While it's unlikely that the White House would be able to hide a faux Melania, Twitter was able to have some fun anyway. Me conspiracy theories are stupid. Twitter. Donald Trump is going around with a fake Melania stunt double. Me pic.twitter.com 9 Oud Moodving, Regina Phalangid Rukfeli October 18, 2017 My wife Melania, who happens to be right here. Pic.twitter.com 3 UV9S, Sailor Pellegrino Spiderweb at Ashley October 18, 2017 I'm joined here by my wife Melania, who also happens to be here today. It's not Melania. Pic.twitter.com 9 Ib38EN, Dave Jones at Welsh Gasdock October 18, 2017 Fake Melania is played by BoJack Horseman's own Vincent Adultman. Pic.twitter.com Sidecore 226, Kent M. Wilhelm at KW_HC October 18, 2017 Revolving Light Breaking Revolving Light Fake Melania Trump revealed to be elusive criminal mastermind Carmen Sandiego. Pic.twitter.com Nerdmustler Trump's taxes at Trump's taxes October 18, 2017 Instant Halloween costumer put on a bad wig sunglasses tell people you're Melania got it the air quotes each time you say ITYW. Broke ass pumpkins at Brooklyn Poverty October 18, 2017 Me I can't deal with all this fake news, it's harming American democracy. Twitter Melania Trump has a body double. Me pic.twitter.com Cremar 8 Sam Striker at Substriker October 18, 2017 This fake Melania stuff is wild. See below. Melania as she appeared today left and real Melania right. Pic.twitter.com Skokix01, Cameron Esposito at Cameron Esposito October 18, 2017 We have a question for you Melania. Yes, are you really Melania Trump? Bulls forwards Nikola Mirotic and Bobby Portis came into camp last month fighting for a starting spot. On Tuesday, they were just fighting. And this wasn't your typical NBA non-fight fight. According to multiple witnesses, Portis and Mirotic had a heated confrontation in practice, resulting in an apparent shoving match. Portis, however, took it a step further, landing what was deemed a sucker punch to Mirotic's face. Mirotic, 26, was taken to a hospital and, according to the Bulls, suffered a concussion as well as several broken bones in his face that will require surgery once the swelling goes down. The Bulls ruled out Mirotic indefinitely and promised a significant punishment for Portis. Related stories post-Mirotic-Portis incident. The Bulls are ready to start moving on. Podcast Portis punch shows that it's the same old dysfunction. The Bobby Portis punch was a result of more dysfunction in leadership. Bulls turn focus to the cleanup after the Mirotic-Portis altercation. Mirotic signed a 2-year extension this offseason, added almost 30 pounds of muscle and came into the season looking to prove his doubters wrong. "I know that you guys are very disappointed," Mirotic said earlier in camp of his NBA career. "I saw those reactions the last 2-3 years. I worked on all my weaknesses this summer. It's time to change some things. I'm in a place where I can improve and get better. I'm looking forward. It's not just proving to the media or the fans. It's more proving to myself than you guys." He was doing just that, outplaying Portis enough in practice and in preseason games to be named the starter. As for Portis, 22, he was entering the always pivotal third NBA season, still trying to find steady work. He was being counted on as a key rotation player, getting most of his playing time at power forward. Drafted 22nd overall in 2015, Portis had a few eye-opening moments, including a 19-point showing in Game 1 of the playoff series against the Celtics last season. "I just want repetition, so I can show what I can do," Portis said in camp. "Ultimately, I'm always a team guy. I want the team to win first. As long as our team is getting better and getting wins, that's all that matters to me." The Bulls said Portis apologized to the team after the incident, but he already was ruled out of the opener Thursday against the Raptors. The Bulls were in contact with the league office Tuesday night but will make a final decision on Portis by Wednesday. As for the game against Toronto, considering how well rookie Lauri Markkanen played in his last 2 preseason games, there's a good chance he'll get the starting nod. Markkanen missed the first 3 games of the preseason with back issues, then was less than stellar in his debut against the Pelicans, shooting 1 for 9 from the field, including 0 for 6 from three-point range. But the 7-foot stretch 4 turned it around quickly, scoring 18 points against the Cavaliers, including 15 in the fourth quarter. He followed that game with a 13-point performance from San Diego, California. KGTV contractors working on the border wall prototypes have a week to finish the models. 10 News got a tour of the construction site on Wednesday morning. Construction started on Sept. 26. Contractors must meet several requirements while building these prototypes. The structures must be anti-breaching, anti-climbing, anti-digging and safe for Border Patrol agents to patrol. Related coverage: the companies building the prototypes are all from out of state, from Mississippi, Maryland, Alabama, Texas, and Arizona. 2 companies are building 2 different prototypes, one from concrete, the other from other than concrete material. Here's a full list of companies: W.G. Yates Sons Construction Company, other than concrete material; W.G. Yates Sons Construction Company, Concrete Elta North America Inc., other than concrete material; Cadell Construction Co. LLC, Concrete Cadell Construction Co. LLC, other than concrete material; Texas Sterling Construction Co. Concrete KWR Construction Inc., other than concrete material; Fisher Sand Gravel Co. DBA Fisher Industries. Concrete contractors have 7 days to finish the prototypes. When they're complete, there will be a period of evaluation for the government to pick the best one. So far, it's unclear if President Donald Trump will visit the construction site in the Otay Mesa area when the Bush administration's ethics chief blasted President Trump for invoking the death of John Kelly, John Francis Kelly Moore's son, to defend a false claim that former President Obama didn't call the families of fallen soldiers. Richard Painter, the ethics chief for former President George W. Bush, said that Trump using Kelly's son's death shows that Trump has no empathy for others. Painter was responding to a CNN report that Kelly didn't know Trump would publicly reveal that Obama hadn't called him after his son's death in Afghanistan. "I think we've seen over and over again that President Trump has no empathy for those who serve abroad in our wars, who have been captured, like John McCain." John Sidney McCain. Rubio asks Army to kick out West Point grad with pro-communist posts. The vast woes cannot be pinned on any singular administration overnight. Defense Matters offers support for Iran deal. McCain blocks nominees over Afghanistan strategy. Trump Tillerson spilt raises new questions about end career policy. More, or those who have been killed, are the families of those who have been killed. In the case of Jen Kelly, Painter said, he has no empathy, no understanding of human emotions that people go through because he stayed home during Vietnam with his sore foot or whatever it was, he said. Trump is facing major backlash for comments he is said to have made to the widow of a soldier who was killed in an ambush in Niger 2 weeks. Rep. Frederica Wilson. Overnight health care. Senate want vote on Obamacare repeal bill. GOP chairman ready to resume bipartisan talk. Republicans nix idea of pairing repeal with tax reform. Lawmaker warned officials before retirement home tragedy. Florida Dem abomination that seniors were left at nursing home where 8 died more. DFLA said Trump told the widow of Army Sergeant David Johnson that Johnson knew what he signed up for, but when it happens it hurts anyway. Trump denied making the comments, but Johnson's mother confirmed Wilson's account. Painter said that while Trump's actions were atrocious, Kelly has to stay in the White House to protect the country from dangerous people like Breitbart News head Stephen Bannon. He owes it to our country because there are very dangerous people out there. Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka, a number of others that are pushing to get Jen Kelly outside. In Santa Rosa, a playground stands across the street from where recent wildfires reduced homes to rubble. Nick Giblin. At the wildfires in Northern California cut across a wide swath of the state, including dozens of school districts, hundreds of schools and hundreds of thousands of students. At one point, classes were cancelled for 260,000 students in 600 schools. And while schools are slowly coming back online, there remain many that may not resume classes for days or even weeks. It's the latest in a series of crises across the country, including hurricanes in Texas, Florida and Puerto Rico, that have left millions of children, teachers and parents scrambling both to resume teaching and learning and to confront the emotion and trauma that disasters like these can leave in the minds of children. In California, the fires have created a unique set of challenges for schools. In addition to the disruption and trauma, there is the potential health risks of smoke and air quality and damage to school structures. Before children can return, many schools face a costly and lengthy process of remediation to ensure that the buildings are safe and the air is clean. Sonoma County was hit particularly hard. Flames leveled almost 7,000 structures, mostly homes. In the county seat, Santa Rosa, 1 school and 1 educational farm site were completely destroyed. About a dozen other schools suffered varying degrees of smoke damage. Steve Harrington, the Sonoma County superintendent, said about 180 schools were closed between October 9 and October 13. Most have since reopened. About 400 students and 200 staff members have reported losing their homes, he added. The number is almost certainly higher, he explained, because the full extent of the damage won't be known until all schools are up and running. As the school year resumes, there will be a real need to address the trauma and long-term displacement that so many of our students, the families and the teachers have experienced, Harrington said. Around the affected region, schools and communities are working to ensure that students have the things they need to come back to school: clothing, backpacks, school supplies, hygiene kits, bicycles, and, crucially, access to trauma-informed care and counseling. Even where the fires were suppressed relatively quickly, fears about their lingering effects remain. In Lake County, 2,207 acres burned. And while the fires are mostly contained and evacuation orders have been lifted, educators are working to help students with the healing process. 2 school districts in the county were shut down last week, but most are now reopened without major structural damage. One of our main concerns is the poor air quality, said Jill Rosica, communications director at the Lake County Office of Education. And that makes sense, considering that the smoke from the wildfires is equivalent to the pollution created by all of the state's cars in a year. In Mendocino County, just north of Sonoma, there was no direct fire damage in any school and every school has reopened. But there is still a lot of work to be done, says Assistant Super. Utah school administrators are investigating a racially offensive video that shows 5 white teen girls shouting the N-word and other expletives. Weber High School officials became aware of the footage Monday after the 10-second video began making the rounds of social media. In the video, the group of junior and senior girls scream FK and cheers while smiling and laughing. We are shocked by the conduct of these students and the contents of the video, according to a statement from the Weber School District. School officials have started an investigation and the matter is being taken very seriously. We are trying to determine when the video was made, where it was filmed, why the students would engage in such conduct, and how the clip ended up on social media. School officials said the IT department would look into whether the clip was created with a video editing app that somehow generated the offensive phrase. Initial information suggests that the students may have actually been saying a different phrase, something similar to Surgeon Cuff, the district said. The video was then possibly uploaded into an app that plays it backwards, producing an entirely different sounding phrase. In this case, a very derogatory, offensive racial slur. The school confirmed that 3 of the girls in the video are cheerleaders, but said there's no indication the footage was filmed during extracurricular activities. The video, which was originally posted to Instagram, was also circulating on Facebook, where it had garnered more than 12,000 views by Monday night, according to the Deseret News. Several students and parents took to social media to condemn the video. The video of Weber High School cheerleaders making racist comments makes me so sick, said one Facebook user. Others called for the teens to be booted from the cheerleading team. Please call the school and demand these people no longer be in a representation position for the school, another user wrote on Facebook. Schools officials haven't determined how the students will be disciplined, but said they could be expelled or kicked off the cheerleading squad. All of those things. Stay connected with the most watched, most trusted name in news. Send me email updates from Fox News. I can opt out at any time. By signing up below, I agree to the Fox News. Sen. John McCain gave a speech in Philadelphia critical of Donald Trump. Sen. Bob Corker has become the Senate's latest outspoken Republican critic. Washington CNN Republican Sen. Bob Corker said he loved a speech given by Sen. John McCain that was widely seen as a sharp critique of policies espoused by President Donald Trump. Well, the pieces that I saw, I loved, and I gave him a big hug on the floor, Corker told reporters when asked about the remarks. It's a great speech. McCain was honored Monday night with the Liberty Medal by the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. In his speech, he cautioned against abandoning the ideals we have advanced around the globe in exchange for some half-baked, spurious nationalism cooked up by people who would rather find scapegoats than solve problems. While McCain did not name the president or his advisors, McCain targeted the America First principles that Trump has used throughout this candidacy and presidency. For his part, Corker has become the Senate's latest outspoken Republican critic of Trump and his policies. In recent weeks, the senator from Tennessee has called the White House an adult daycare center, argued that Trump was paving the path to World War III, and declared that a trio of Trump's senior administration officials and cabinet members were responsible for preventing the country from collapsing into chaos. Trump, responding to McCain's speech Tuesday morning, said in a radio interview that people have to be careful because at some point I fight back. "I'm being very nice," Trump added. "I'm being very, very nice. But at some point I fight back and it won't be pretty." Asked Tuesday on Capitol Hill if McCain was referring to the president in his speech, a longtime senator said, "No, I was referring to the whole atmosphere and environment." McCain added that he was referring to those who advocated the theme of America First. "There are a whole lot of people besides the president who say America First," he said. On Sunday, October 8, Fox News Channel aired a story about John Garofalo, a glass artist who created a presidential glass seal in the hopes of gifting it to President Trump. Garofalo claimed he was a Vietnam veteran, a member of the 1st U.S. Navy SEAL team, and a decorated war hero who was awarded 2 Purple Hearts. Unfortunately, all of Garofalo's claims turned out to be untrue. The fact is that he did not serve in Vietnam. He was never a U.S. Navy SEAL. Even though he showed us medals, Garofalo was not awarded 2 Purple Hearts or any of the other nearly 2 dozen commendations he claimed to have received, except for the National Defense Service Medal. It is true that Garofalo is a glass artist and a veteran. He served in Spain and he gifted 2 presidential seals to Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Over the last 2 weeks, we've worked with Garofalo's family and the National Personnel Records Center to get to the bottom of a military past that Garofalo had claimed to be covert. We apologize to our viewers, especially trending sponsored Sen. Ted Cruz, Rafael Ted Edward Cruz. Whatever you think the Alabama special election means, you're probably wrong. This week Congress gets ball rolling on tax reform. Week ahead, senators work toward deal to fix Obamacare. Markets more. Texas lobbed a reference to the HBO comedy Curb Your Enthusiasm at Sen. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. Murphy's profile rises with gun tragedies. Clip shows Larry David and Bernie Sanders reacting after discovering they're related. For now, Trump dossier creates more questions than answers. More IVT during a tax policy debate on CNN Wednesday night. As Cruz spoke during the debate, Sanders attempted to interject, prompting a response from the Texas Republican. "You know, as some might say, curb your enthusiasm," Cruz quipped. The reference to the show created and starring comedian Larry David hits particularly close to Sanders. David played Sanders on NBC's Saturday Night Live last year, an impersonation that earned him an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Comedy Series. By the way, the impression Larry David does of you is spectacular and uncanny, Cruz told Sanders. In a clip from the PBS series Finding Your Roots released earlier this month, it was, "I know that they probably don't want me back and I know they're probably still mad at me," he said. Next, with Kyle Clark. A Cub Scout is now without a den after getting kicked out when he asked a Colorado state senator some tough questions. "I know that they probably don't want me back. And I know that they're probably still mad at me," Ames Mayfield said. Ames asked very specific questions on gun control when State Sen. Vicky Marble R. Fort Collins visited the 11-year-old's den on October 9. "Why on earth would you want somebody who beats the wife to have access to a gun?" Ames asked Marble in a video recorded by his mom. "There's something wrong in our country where Republicans believe it's a right to own a gun, but a privilege to have health care." 5 days later, Ames' mom said she met with the PAC leader, who told her that Ames could find another den within the PAC, but not the one he was currently in. "I am really heartbroken that my den leader, which I really felt like I had a pretty good relationship with, decided to kick me out," Ames said. "I don't think any child should be banned from coming back for asking a tough question," said Ames' mom, Lori Mayfield. "Most certainly, the punishment far exceeds any crime, if there was one, and I don't think there was one." The other Cub Scouts asked Marble questions on fracking, the border wall, fossil fuels and why people voted for President Obama, according to Lori, who was present at the meeting. "In the mix of that, it didn't seem like gun control was that different," she said. His mother said other dens in the PAC HES being offered a place in don't work with his schedule and she doesn't think he should have to change dens over this. "I don't want to force ourselves back into this den, but I do think the Boy Scouts of America dropped the ball on this and they didn't happen it properly," she said. "We found out that there is a Cub Scout pack at our church, so I've reached out to them, but I haven't heard back yet. I was a big fan of the den originally, but now since I know consequences and stuff and how they view things, I'm kind of concerned, so no, I don't really want to get back in," Ames said. "We know what some of you are thinking." Ames' questions were a way for his mom to score political points against a state lawmaker. "I hit the printer button and helped him work out the printer, but no, it wasn't my agenda," she said. "The den leader did not return our call, and the PAC leader directed us to talk to the marketing director of the Boy Scouts of America." The Boy Scouts of America released a statement saying, "The BSA and the Denver Area Council are committed to working with families interested in scouting to find local units that are the best fit for their children. It is important to note that the Scout is still part of the Cub Scout pack, and we are working with the family to offer the Scout Davis Elementary will be renamed after Barack Obama. School will be stripped of late President of the Confederacy. Copy link. Copy shortcut to copy link. Copied updated 730 AM CDT October 19, 2017. High transcript show transcript WEBVTT 16 WAPTS. Ross Adam explains. Reporter historic presidential name change for Davis Magnet School. Greater than it's a great idea because President Obama, to me, was one of the best presidents that we ever had. Greater than very favorable for the name change. I think IT will benefit the community. Reporter leaders this week voted to name the elementary school with a 98% AFRICAN enrollment after former President Barack Obama. They will remove Davis from the building, named for Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Greater than well, in that case, I think it's a great idea to put Barack Obama as the new name of this school. Reporter, it's ironic that a school named for the only president of the Confederate State of America fighting to SPREFRB slavery will now bear the name of the first AFRICAN president. Greater than we wanted to be open and inclusive and transparent in THEPROCESS and make sure everybody's voice is heard. Reporter Davis PTA President Janelle Jefferson said the decision to change the name CAMEFROM the entire school community, including the students. Greater than they were very engaged in the process. Reporter state rankings show Davis is the top academic performer of all elementary and middle schools in the state. The name change takes effect next year. Greater than I think IT will be a good idea to kind of change the culture a little bit, kind of educate the kids about Jackson, Mississippi. Jefferson Davis School will be renamed Barack Obama Elementary by the 20,182,019 school year. Davis International Baccalaureate Elementary School in Jackson was named decades ago for Jefferson Davis. In a move proposed by parents, the school with 98% African American enrollment will be renamed for Barack Obama in the next academic year. The PTA president announced the planned change at a school board meeting Tuesday. State rankings show the magnet school is the top academic performer of all elementary and middle schools in Mississippi. The name change comes as leaders of the school district in Mississippi's capital city are reconsidering Confederate names on 3 campuses. About 96% of students in Jackson public schools are African American. JPS describes the name of the school and history of Davis on the website. Jefferson Davis, 18,081,889. Kentucky native Jefferson Davis attended Transylvania University in Kentucky and graduated from the U.S. Military Academy in 1828. Davis was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1845 and served in the Senate from 1847 to 1851. After serving as Secretary of War, he returned to the Senate, from which he resigned when Mississippi seceded from the Union. An extremely private and intimate wedding ceremony at an Indiana state park Saturday for Vice President Mike Pence's son has come under attack by a state Democrat who on Facebook identified the venue and wrongly warned that the whole area would be shut down. The post from Sue Wanzer, a Democratic activist and local school board member, drew many angry responses like this. Pence ruins everything. Her October 18th post read, "Heads up, if you're planning a trip to Nashville this weekend, you should probably scrap that. Pence's kid is getting married in Brown County State Park. It's going to be an utter mess and a lot of areas like the state park will be shut down in large portions." This is unpublished, but reports from state park staff and things like flight restrictions over Nashville seem to confirm. Actually, the park has said that the park will remain open except for the wedding area. The fact that the vice president will be here will not impact our regular visitors, property manager Doug Baird told the Bloomington, Indiana Herald-Times. The wedding is to be the ceremonial celebration for Marine Corps Second Lieutenant Michael Pence and Sarah Whiteside. Because of travel involved in the Marines' duty and the presidential campaign, the two held a legal ceremony in the Indiana governor's mansion in December, when Pence was still governor, before his inauguration as vice president a month later. The Saturday ceremony is expected to be very small and drew no big entourage from Washington. The vice president's office offered no comment. Paul Badai, the Washington supporters of Sen. Bernie Sanders IVT won a round against Hillary Clinton supporters at the DNC on October 20. Melina Marath, Washington Post. Las Vegas. The Democratic National Committee on Friday rejected a resolution that would have urged independents such as Sen. Bernie Sanders of Vermont to register or affiliate with the Democratic Party next year, one of several small victories for the party's left wing. "This put salt in a wound that we need to be closing right now," said James Zogby, the outgoing chairman of the DNC's Resolutions Committee, as the measure was debated in a morning meeting. "The consequences would feed a Twitter debate that will not be helpful to any of us right now." The resolution, introduced by 3 DNC members from California, attracted attention this week as one more skirmish between those who supported Hillary Clinton during the 2016 Democratic presidential primary and those who supported Sanders. Bob Mulholland, the DNC member who pitched the resolution to the committee, argued that Democrats were losing potential votes by letting progressive voters work outside the party. "I thought we were Democrats here," said Mulholland. "When the Yankees face off against the Dodgers, the only people who will be independent in that ballpark will be the umpires." But the negative attention on the resolution helped sink it. Turgey Anderson, a DNC member from Vermont, told the committee that the language had been sprung on them without warning and didn't reflect Sanders' alliance with his state's Democrats. "It's really troubling when you get your resolution package and you find out your state's been named in it without any prior consultation," said Anderson. "We've come to a solution that works for us, and we don't need external voices telling us how to solve our primaries. Next year, Bernie will run for and win the Democratic primary, and he will win re-election as an independent." The resolution died with a quick voice vote. Earlier in the day, Sanders supporters scored another win by passing language officially rejecting corporate donors that conflict with our DNC platform. That language had first been introduced in 2016, when the DNC's Quadrennial Platform Committee met over 2 days to hammer out differences between supporters of Sanders and Clinton. Christine Pelosi, a San Francisco activist who had backed Clinton in the primary, introduced language that would committed the party to rejecting money from business interests whose interests conflicted with the party's platform. The platform committee, dominated by Clinton delegates, voted it down. But on Friday morning, Pelosi took another run at the idea, describing it a way for Democrats to codify their opposition to payday lenders and other businesses the party wants to regulate. "In our platform, the most progressive platform in Woodhaven, Mitch, WXYZ 311 p.m. Man who killed himself in Woodhaven Ford plant identified 11:11 a.m. Full story with quotes from the scene of the Ford Woodhaven stamping plant. 10:07 a.m. Michigan State Police say the scene is secure and a suspicious package has been cleared and deemed safe at the Ford plant in Woodhaven. A disgruntled employee went to the plant and pulled out a gun during a labor dispute. Police were called to the scene and approached the suspect. As officers approached the suspect, he pulled out the gun and killed himself. Police say no one else was injured and no other shots were fired. Ford released this statement to 7 Action News. Employees at Woodhaven stamping plant are safe after they were evacuated when a worker pulled a gun at the plant and shot himself. Woodhaven police are on the scene. 9:58 a.m. The Woodhaven deputy police chief said a disgruntled employee at the Ford stamping plant came in for a labor dispute on Friday morning and presented a gun. Police were called to the scene and approached the suspect. As officers approached the suspect, he pulled out the gun and killed himself. Police say no one else was injured and no other shots are fired. The bomb squad is on scene investigating a suspicious package that was left behind. 9:48 a.m. Watch the latest live update from the scene after one person was killed during an active shooter incident at the Ford stamping plant in Woodhaven. The shooter is down and one person is confirmed killed. Police haven't said if the shooter is the one dead. Multiple police agencies, including Flat Rock Police, Michigan State Police and more, are on scene. The bomb squad has been called to determine if an unattended package is connected to the incident. We're told it happened on the second floor and SWAT teams are going room to clear the building. 9:35 a.m. At least one person is dead after an active shooter incident at the Ford stamping plant in Woodhaven. Police say the situation is neutralized and police say the shooter is down, but they haven't said if they were killed. SWAT and the bomb squad are on scene to investigate as well. A suspicious item was found near the body at the plant. Workers tell 7 Action News there was a man with a gun inside the building. 9:30 a.m. Police are going room to room after an active shooter was shot by police at the Ford stamping plant in Woodhaven. It's not clear if the suspect was killed, but they have to go room to room and clear the building. Watch coverage below. 9:15 a.m. An active shooter was shot by police at the Ford Woodhaven stamping plant on Thursday morning. Police did not confirm to 7 Action News if the suspect was killed, but they did say the situation is neutralized. Alex Avila, a backup catcher, succeeded Tuesday where 31 consecutive Cubs had failed. He got a hit off a Dodgers relief pitcher. Dodger relievers had retired 29 out of the 31 batters they faced in the National League Championship Series before Avila lined a single off Ross Stripling leading off the bottom of the 9th inning. Albert Almora followed Avila's hit with a ground drill double to left field, ending Stripling's outing after 2 batters. At the point, manager Dave Roberts turned to Old Faithful Kenley Jansen, and the next 3 Cubs were retired in order, the final 2 by strikeout. Before Avila's hit, the only 2 Cubs to reach base off the bullpen were Anthony Rizzo, who was hit by Jansen pitch in Game 2, and Kyle Schwarber on a walk issued by Brandon Morrow in the 8th inning Tuesday. Barnes is the choice. Austin Barnes made his 5th consecutive start at catcher as Yasmani Grandal was relegated to the bench, even with the Cubs starting right-hand pitcher Kyle Hendricks. Roberts indicated Grandal is expected to be in the lineup in Game 4 when the Cubs start Jake Arrieta, another right-hander. Grandal hit a home run off Arrieta in last year's NLCS. Roberts acknowledged Grandal's frustration with his diminished role. He's handled it as well as anyone who had been the start of the whole year, Roberts said. But it's just more about each individual game that you look at. You have to look at it like who gives us the best chance in the particular spot. Barnes spent most of the season as the primary catcher against left-handers. He began to siphon away playing time against right-handers when Grandal's production waned as October approached. Barnes finished the season with a .902 on-base plus slugging percentage against right-hand pitchers. Grandal hit 22 homers in 2017, but his ops against right-handers was .790. Grandal possesses a stronger and more accurate throwing arm, but the Dodgers trust Barnes' game planning behind the plate more than Grandal's defensively. They're very comparable, Roberts said. Yaz throws better, but as far as the game calling, the blocking, they're very, very comparable. We have 2 elite catchers. Deja vu for Arrieta. The 2015 NL Cy Young Award winner will oppose Alex Wood on Wednesday. Arrieta can file for free agency this fall. Before he faced the Washington Nationals in the division series, he said he would try to take in all the sights and sounds of Wrigley Field in case that start turned out to be his last with the Cubs. Here we go again 8 days later, this time with the Cubs facing elimination. It is a repeat, he said. Very similar situation, but still optimistic, and looking forward to making a couple more here. Seager working back in Los Angeles. Shortstop Corey Seager worked out doing some drills inside the weight room, Roberts said. Seager has not been cleared to swing a bat or run the bases. The Dodgers hope he can play catch Wednesday. How he responds tomorrow from that extra work, we'll find out tomorrow, Roberts said. But I think to Corey, who, on the morning of the opener of the National League Championship Series, the Dodgers announced that all-star shortstop Corey Seager would not play because of injury. Cubs pitcher John Lester likened the impact on the Dodgers to how the Cubs might have been hurt had they lost Chris Bryant, the defending NL most valuable player. ESPN analyst Dan Szymborski calculated that the injury had reduced the Dodgers' chance to win the series from 57.0% to 49.9%. In other words, Dodgers favored to toss up, the only toss the Dodgers might have to worry about at this point. Who will toss the ceremonial first pitch at Game 1 of the World Series? The Dodgers have not missed a beat or a victory without Seager. Chris Taylor, Tuesday's replacement shortstop, homered and tripled and drove in 2 runs in a 6-1 victory over the Chicago Cubs. The Dodgers lead the series 3-0. The next victory clinches the first World Series berth since 1988. This team hasn't relied on one guy the whole season, third baseman Justin Turner said. Depth wins in the regular season, but stars win in October. Don't try telling that to the Dodgers, who had no hits Tuesday from perhaps the 3 most potent offensive threats, Turner, Cody Bellinger and the injured Seager, and won by 5 runs. None of the players that drove in a run, Taylor, oft-injured outfielder Andre Ethier, third-string catcher Kyle Farmer and pitcher Yu Darvish, were on the Dodgers' opening day roster. Clayton Kershaw went down, Corey went down, JT went down, Cody went down, closer Kenley Jansen said. Gonzo Adrian Gonzalez was down the whole year. We don't let that stuff bother us. That's what's special about this team. Whoever went down, we just try to pick them up. In the 3 games of the division series, Seager batted .273, with 1 extra base hit and a .455 slugging percentage. In the 3 games they have played in the League Championship Series, the Dodgers shortstops, Taylor and Charlie Culberson, have batted .400, with 4 extra base hits and a 1.10 slugging percentage. The sample size is small, but the formula has been so successful that the Dodgers need not junk it for the World Series, even if Seager is available. In September, before he injured his back but after he reported pain in his elbow, he said throwing caused discomfort but swinging did not. In the World Series, the Dodgers could play 3 games under American League rules, which would give the team the option to use Seager as a designated hitter. Taylor became the first player in postseason history to hit a home run as a shortstop and center fielder, and he did it in the same series. The Dodgers have used 8 leadoff batters this season. Taylor solidified the spot in the second half. He's really a spark plug at the top of the lineup, Turner said. Ever since he got put in that leadoff spot, he has been a game changer for us. When he reported to spring training this season, he had played 2,400 professional innings, none of them in center field. He became the starting center fielder on the team that posted the best record in the major leagues. After Culberson played shortstop in the first 2 games of the series, Taylor started there in Game 3. To count him as a depth player might not be entirely fair, since he did not come off the bench, or the inactive roster. He simply moved from center field to shortstop for the game. In recent days, Sherman writes, I spoke with a half-dozen prominent Republicans and Trump advisors, and they all describe a White House in crisis as advisors struggle to contain a president who seems to be increasingly unfocused and consumed by dark moods. The inability of congressional Republicans to pass any major legislation, along with Luther Strange's defeat in the Alabama Republican primary last month, has reportedly pushed the president close to the edge. Alabama was a huge blow to his psyche, someone close to the president told Sherman. He saw the cult of personality was broken. The president's apparent mental decline has made the newly released book The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, in which 27 mental health experts access Trump's mental state, all the more timely. In an interview with Salon's Andrew O'Heir last week, the book's editor, Drive. Bandy Lee, a forensic psychiatrist at the Yale School of Medicine, warned that in the office of the presidency, Trump poses a danger to the public, and in fact the international community. Assessing dangerousness is actually more about the situation and not just about the person, whereas a diagnosis would be about the person and stays with the individual, explained Lee. So a certain individual may be dangerous in a certain position of power and not dangerous in another situation. Lee and the book's 26 contributors argue that in his current position of power, with his fingertips on the nuclear codes, Donald Trump poses a great danger to the world, and that it is the moral and civic duty of mental health professionals to warn the American public. Of course, people have been saying this much for the past 2 years, and Trump's temperament has long been a major area of concern. But this assessment carries more weight than anything that has come before it, and confirms the popular sentiment that Trump is uniquely dangerous, and that anyone, including Vice President Mike Pence, San Diego was on President Donald Trump's mind, and his Twitter feed Tuesday night. Why his dream of building an improved wall at the US-Mexico border is finally becoming a reality. Well, at least the models for what the wall could look like are becoming a reality. Construction on prototype designs for the border wall began in September, and with work at the fenced-off site in San Diego's Otay Mesa almost complete, Trump took to his favorite form of communication to show his excitement. He shared this montage of construction work footage on Twitter. In total, there will be 8 prototypes for his proposed border wall. 4 of the prototypes will be made of concrete, while the other 4 will be made of alternate materials. All of the models will be between 18 to 30 feet high and 30 feet long. As the San Diego Union Tribune has reported, at least 5 prototypes have already gone up and the construction work has gone on with little interruption, protests or other opposition. Photos: border wall prototypes mostly up after third week. Here's where you can find them in San Diego. The construction site is about 1.5 miles east of Enrico Fermi Drive. The deadline to complete the prototypes is October 26, after which U.S. Customs and Border Protection are expected to choose which design will be used. This is all going on despite a lack of congressional funding for the rest of the wall that Trump once built. But the president is still celebrating the progress HES made, and many on Twitter were celebrating with him. https twitter.com official Mike status 92042524908193382. Others were less impressed. Meanwhile in San Diego, reactions to the prototype construction in our backyard is mixed. San Diegans, have you been out to see the prototypes? What are your thoughts about them being built in your city? Send us a tweet to @STTDiazA, Dunedin, FLA, WFLA. The Pinellas County Sheriff called a Dunedin man arrested after finding an arsenal of guns, knives, ammunition and maps in his home. A lone wolf. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri called Randall Drake a sleeper and even compared him to the Las Vegas shooter. Detectives said he had enough weapons to start his own war, bombs capable of mass carnage. Drake, 24, bonded out of jail and was expected to get a mental evaluation. Detectives said he had no criminal history and no history of mental health issues. They initially went to his house looking for child porn. More Dunedin man accused of possessing AK-47 homemade bombs in home. However, they did find an AK-47, a bat with nails protruding from it, 3 homemade bombs and maps and aerial photos of Esrig Elementary School, Ben Hill Middle School and a water treatment plant in Hillsborough County. If he had taken those devices, put them in something else, put a bunch of nails and screws and other things, he could have caused some serious damage, Gualtieri said. Drake isn't talking to detectives, but a disturbing handwritten note was also discovered. The daughters come, and I am ready, the note stated. I have fed on my hatred for centuries. My fury at those who imprisoned me shall be vast and without mercy. I shall have my bloody revenge, and then the world will burn. Drake lived with his parents on Royal Oak Drive North, but the firearms and bombs were discovered in a closet in his bedroom that had a combination lock on N. Drake was charged with 2 counts of unlawfully making or possessing a destructive device. Detectives have yet to determine why Drake possessed the incendiary devices or what he intended to do with them. It's clear that help's up to something. What's the triggered event? Why? What's the motivation? What's the hatred? Why does he want the world to burn? I don't know. Hopefully we can try to find out, Gualtieri said. Detectives removed 10 rifles, 8 handguns, 2 shotguns, more than 2,300 rounds of ammunition, a makeshift firearm and suppressor, more than 15 knives, a baseball bat with protruding nails, a crossbow, brass knuckles, gunpowder and other evidence from the residence. Drake's last recorded place of employment was the Florida Firearms Academy in Newport Richey. In this undated photo released by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, an improvised explosive device is shown in the home of Randall Drake. Sheriff's deputies conducting a child porn raid on the home found an arsenal of guns and explosives and a homemade silencer, along with a note promising bloody revenge. Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri told reporters Thursday night, October 19, 2017. Deputies also found aerial images of 2 schools and a water plant in nearby Tampa. There was also a note that deputies believe Drake wrote, promising he'll have his bloody revenge and the world will send. Bernie Sanders IVT speaks at the David Lawrence Convention Center in Pittsburgh about the health care issues surrounding a Senate vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act in June. Jeff Swenson for The Washington Post. An early poll of the 2020 Democratic primaries, which kick off in roughly 820 days, finds Sen. Bernie Sanders IVT at the front of a crowded field, in a race that would bear little resemblance to 2016's TWA candidate marathon. The first 2020 Granite State poll, conducted by the University of New Hampshire's Survey Center, finds that 31% of the state's Democrats would back Sanders if the first presidential primary were held today. 24% would back former Vice President Joe Biden, while 13% would back Sen. Elizabeth Warren de masse. No other contender, not even Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, cracks double digits. Sanders, who won the 2016 New Hampshire primary by a historic landslide, has also spent more time in the state than any potential rival. Later this month, he'll headline a Democratic event in coastal Strafford County. Last month, he headlined two of the party's Labor Day events. Rep. John Delaney DMD, and Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, who have also appeared in New Hampshire this year, registered no support in the poll. Delaney is the first, and so far only, declared Democratic candidate. Still, a recent history of UNH's poll suggests that ultra-early numbers are largely academic. 4 years ago, the Granite State poll pegged former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at 64% in New Hampshire. 6% of voters supported Biden, and another 6% supported Warren, neither of whom ended up in the race. The pollsters did not ask about Sanders until July 2014, after he had made several visits to the state. In that survey, Clinton came in at 59%, Sanders at 5%. The Vermont senator did not run close to Clinton until July 2015, when both were official candidates and after Clinton had been damaged by her use of a private email server while at the State Department. Clinton's collapse and eventual defeat by Sanders was unprecedented in modern primary polling. So, however, was her early lead. Analysis public opinion polls in the Virginia gubernatorial race are tightening. Lieutenant Gov. Ralph Northam, the Democrat who had opened a comfortable lead over Ed Gillespie, the Republican, over the summer, has only a tiny lead in most polls now, and a new Monmouth survey puts Mr. Gillespie up by a point. There's little room for error by either candidate, and Mr. Northam has just made a doozy, perhaps a doozy of considerable size and consequence. His campaign has flooded Northern Virginia with a mailer rallying Democrats, with the name and face of his running mate airbrushed out of the picture. Justin Fairfax, the running mate, is a black man. Mr. Fairfax would become only the second black lieutenant governor in Virginia, and the Northam campaign quickly explained that his race had nothing to do with it. Yes, of course not. Who would believe that Democrats, eager to call others racists and bigots, would do a thing like that just to win an election? Heaven forfend. The real reason, Mr. Northam says, is that the labor unions put pressure on Mr. Northam to get his running mate out of the picture because he opposes construction of a pipeline across the northern part of the state that would create jobs. Mr. Fairfax is a loyal party man and agrees that the mailer, which went only to union households, was only a mistake. Perhaps that's all it was, but it suggests that Mr. Northam is willing to offend hundreds of thousands of black voters, the party's most loyal constituency, to appease the unions, and counts on black voters to forgive and forget. Mr. Northam thought he would have to work very hard to ride a wave of anti-Trump sentiment to office. Virginia, which was a reliable red state once upon a time, is turning a deeper shade of purple with every election cycle. But that was then, and now he has to work hard to rally black voters who aren't likely to believe Mr. Northam's explanation of airbrushing his running mate out of the picture merely to satisfy another, smaller block of voters. Barack Obama has been recruited to ride to the rescue of a campaign suddenly in trouble. Elections, like baseball games, are won or lost on bonehead plays. Even a candidate for garbage commissioner knows you can't slight your most loyal constituents, even by an honest mistake. Countless research papers and government reports have said it, but the wildfires in Northern California this month brought it home. Climate change is fueling larger, more frequent and more devastating wildfires in the state, and communities have to start making themselves safer now. 2 of the 3 largest wildfires in California's history have happened in the last 4 years. This year's fires in wine country have been the deadliest in the state's history, with 42 victims so far. Northern California is now experiencing the kind of wildfires that have rampaged through Southern California in recent years, fast, ferocious blazes that can wipe out suburban neighborhoods. As high temperatures and prolonged droughts bring more fires, models predict that the greatest property damage will be in the wildland-urban interfaces where developments abut foothills, forests or other open land. Roughly 6% of the state falls into this category, mainly in coastal Southern California, the Bay Area and the increasingly developed Sierra foothills. California has to reckon with the fact that continued sprawl into previously undeveloped areas puts life and property at risk. This is not easy. The state has an extreme housing shortage, and it's simpler in the short term to keep building outward than to redesign cities for greater density. But the threat of climate change has to force California to change the way it grows. Starting this year, cities and counties are required by state law to develop policies to address the risks that climate change poses to the communities. That should force communities vulnerable to more frequent wildfires to evaluate how or whether new homes can be built safely on the urban edge. The state requires that new buildings in zones deemed by the state to be at high risk of fire be made with fire-resistant materials, such as tile roofs. The state and local governments should also consider requiring older homes and buildings in high-risk zones to be retrofitted. Unfortunately, urban areas often weren't included by the state in its designated high-risk zones because, well, nobody expected a wildfire to sweep through a city. State officials are now revising the maps, and the fires around Santa Rosa must surely be a wake-up call that suburbia has to be made more fire-resistant. Californians also must recognize that making the communities more resilient to more intense wildfires will be an expensive, long-term proposition. That means removing dead trees and excess brush to reduce the fuel for fires. That means educating residents about how to protect themselves, like California. A lawsuit against President Trump alleges he is violating the foreign and domestic emoluments clauses of the Constitution. Plaintiff's lawyer Deepak Gupta says Trump's Washington hotel above is an emoluments magnet. Paul J. Richards Getty Images. If there's one thing President Trump's critics want from him, and he refuses to give up, it's his tax returns. The returns didn't come up during Wednesday's hearing in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. But the hearing was the first step in a process that could loosen Trump's grip on them. If the next step goes the plaintiff's way, the case could make the president's tax returns surface. Trump is being sued by 4 plaintiffs who allege he is violating anti-corruption provisions in the Constitution, namely, its foreign and domestic emoluments clauses. If Judge George Daniels says the plaintiffs have legal standing to proceed with the suit, they then can seek internal financial documents, including those tax returns. We will be looking for detailed financial records, foreign and domestic transactions, in the president's businesses, plaintiff's lawyer Joseph Sellers told reporters after the hearing. If the tax returns turn out to be relevant, we may seek them. Trump is the only president since 1977 to withhold his tax returns from voluntary disclosure. Unlike recent presidents, he has also refused to comply voluntarily with the federal conflict of interest law. Doing so would have forced him to separate himself from the Trump business empire. The lawsuit comes from 3 plaintiffs in the hotel and restaurant industry, and one watchdog group called Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. The Constitution's clauses banning emoluments, that is, money and other favors, are meant to keep federal officials out of conflicts of interest. Plaintiff's lawyer Deepak Gupta told Daniels that Trump's Washington hotel is an emoluments magnet. Its international business has been burgeoning, according to news reports. Justice Department lawyer Brett Shumate said the plaintiffs failed to show they have been injured by Trump hotels and restaurants, so they wouldn't have legal standing. As the hearing wrapped up, the Wobsters have decided to throw out the old tradition of forbidding everyone but the bride to wear white. Instead, guests were required to come head-to-toe in pearly get-up to participate in the biggest wedding event since the royal wedding. All the women have to wear a gown, as if you are getting married. And the men have to wear white suits. Even my camera crew has to wear white. If you don't come dressed accordingly, you have to leave, and I'm so serious. If you come wearing something else, then you were not invited, bride Keisha Kaoir previously said. On this very special 10/17 day, 2 Chainz, Lil Yachty, Jane Aiko, Big Sean, and more put together stunning, all-white outfits for Keisha Kaoir and Gucci Mane's diamond-flooded wedding. The main event is taking place in Miami and airs tonight on BET at 10. St. Louis FBI officials here announced Wednesday that they rescued a teenage girl and arrested 4 alleged sex traffickers as part of a 4-day nationwide effort to combat underage human trafficking. The F-built multi-agency law enforcement effort Operation Cross Country ended October 15 with the agency and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children announcing the rescue of more than 84 underage victims and the arrest of more than 120 alleged human traffickers. "We at the FBI have no greater mission than to protect our nation's children from harm," FBI Director Christopher Wray said in a news release. "Unfortunately, the number of traffickers arrested, and the number of children recovered, reinforces why we need to continue to do this important work." Authorities in St. Louis arrested 4 suspected traffickers and rescued a 17-year-old girl as a part of the campaign, which involved dozens of FBI officers and state and local task forces across the country. While Operation Cross Country is a focused and coordinated effort nationwide, our Child Exploitation Task Force, which includes local and state law enforcement partners, work tirelessly year-round to rescue children from sex trafficking. Zachary Lowe, acting special agent in charge of FBI St. Louis, said in the release, FBI agents and law enforcement officers investigated at hotels, casinos and truck stops as a part of the campaign, as well as online. Authorities said the youngest victim rescued during the nationwide campaign is 3 months old. Authorities said the average age of rescued victims is 15. Those rescued were offered help, including medical services and mental health counseling, from State Protective Services and the FBI's Victim Services Division. Child sex trafficking is happening in every community across America, and at the National Center for Missing Exploited. A federal judge in Washington has ordered the Trump administration to allow a detained teenager who is in the U.S. illegally to have an abortion. The 17-year-old, identified in court documents only as Jane Doe, is being held in a private facility in Texas after she was apprehended crossing the U.S.-Mexico border last month. She is 15 weeks pregnant and has asked for an abortion. Lawyers for the Trump administration argued that because the teenager is not a citizen, she doesn't have a constitutional right to an elective abortion while in federal custody, except in case of a medical emergency. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan disagreed. She ordered the government to transport the teenager, or allow her guardian to transport her, to have the procedure promptly and without delay. The order also restrains government officials from interfering with or obstructing the teenager's decision to have an abortion. As NPR's Sarah McCammon reported last week, the dispute pits immigration advocates and the American Civil Liberties Union against anti-abortion rights groups and officials at the Department of Health and Human Services. Under Texas law, minors need parental consent or a judge's permission to obtain an abortion. In a previous legal filing, the ACLU said the girl, known in the case as Jane Doe to protect her privacy, has obtained the permission, but the government has blocked her from leaving the shelter for that purpose. The ACLU said federal officials required the girl to undergo counseling and an ultrasound at a crisis pregnancy center, an anti-abortion organization that does not provide abortion services, wrote McCammon. The fact that HHS officials had sent the young woman to abortion counseling against her will but were unwilling to comply with her desire for an abortion apparently irked Judge Chutkan. The Washington Post reports that the judge, an Obama administration appointee, and Deputy Assistant Attorney General Scott Stewart, sparred in a hearing Wednesday of the question of whether undocumented immigrants are protected by the Constitution. Stewart argued that immigrants in the U.S. without permission have minimal constitutional protections and that the government has an interest in preserving life and protecting national boundaries, according to the Post. In a statement, ACLU lawyer Bridget Amiri said, "At last, our client will be able to get the care she needs without federal officials standing in the way. No one should have to go to court to get a safe, legal abortion. And no one should be held hostage to the extreme anti-abortion views of a handful of government officials." The president and CEO of Americans United for Life, First Lady Melania Trump, donated her inaugural ball gown to the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C., Friday morning, adding to the museum's collection of 26 gowns worn by former First Ladies. The First Lady wore the gown, a vanilla off-the-shoulder couture piece designed by Herve Pierre, the night President Trump took office at the Armed Forces inaugural ball. Pierre had 2 weeks to make the dress. The former model said making the donation was an honor. "Today is such an honor as I dedicate my inaugural couture piece to the First Lady's exhibit at the National Museum of American History," the First Lady said in a statement provided by the White House. In addition to celebrating fashion, which is something I have loved since I was a small child, there is no better way to memorialize such a special evening and new chapter in the life of our family. The First Lady said she, the President and their son Barron love living there. The First Lady has taken a relatively quiet, although increasingly public, role at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. She recently accompanied Mr. Trump to Texas, Florida and to Puerto Rico for the recent hurricanes, and has gone with him on foreign trips. Her approval ratings have actually climbed since she joined the White House, from 24% of Americans viewing her favorably in February to 54% of Americans viewing her favorably in a September CNN poll. She is also the most popular Trump working in the White House. In the same September CNN poll, 54% of respondents said they had a favorable view of the First Lady, compared with 41% favorable of President Trump, 41% favorable of Ivanka Trump and 20% favorable of Jared Kushner. Months ago, Mrs. Trump pledged to make First Lady Melania Trump will soon say goodbye to the custom Hervé Pierre gown she wore to the inaugural ball on January 20th. This week, Trump will follow a 105-year-old tradition that began in 1912 and will donate her dress to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, specifically to a collection for its First Lady's exhibition. Mrs. Trump had a passion for design starting at a very young age, and had a very precise idea of what she wanted to wear for the historic evening, Trump's communications director Stephanie Grisham told CNN. She is honored to be able to donate her couture piece to such an iconic exhibit at the Smithsonian. Melania is set to participate in the gown presentation ceremony at DC's National Museum of American History Friday at 10 a.m. According to Lisa Kathleen Grady, curator of the museum's First Ladies collection, the act has been a tradition followed by every First Lady since Helen Herron Taft. Related, President Trump's first wife Ivana says she would trade places with Melania since then. It's become the custom for the Smithsonian to make the donation request, and for the First Lady to give her gown for the public to view, she told CNN. The Smithsonian reportedly works to put together a mannequin that resembles each First Lady's figure and begins working with the garment after the inauguration. Designer Hervé Pierre, Lady Gaga makes an unbilled appearance at the benefit concert held at Reed Arena at Texas A&M University. CNN members of an exclusive club made a rare joint appearance Saturday. All 5 living former U.S. presidents took part in a benefit concert in Texas to raise money for hurricane relief efforts, while President Donald Trump appeared in a taped video message to the concert-goers. Former Presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter attended Saturday night's event, named Deep from the Heart, the One America Appeal, at Reed Arena at Texas A&M University and College Station. Trump planned his taped message to hail the resiliency of the American people following the devastation of this year's deadly hurricanes and wildfires. In it, he calls the effort of his predecessors tremendous. To Presidents Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Barack Obama, Melania and I want to express our deep gratitude for your tremendous assistance, Trump says in the message. This wonderful effort reminds us that we truly are one nation under God, all unified by our values and our devotion to one another. A White House official said Trump was honored to be given an opportunity to participate in relief and recovery efforts, adding that the president encourages all Americans to be as generous as they can in helping storm survivors through this difficult time. The concert featured rock and country musicians such as Lyle Lovett, Robert Elkine, Sam Moore and Yolanda Adams. Country music singer Lee Greenwood was MC for the event. Lady Gaga made an unbilled appearance and tweeted, "Nothing more beautiful than everyone putting the differences aside to help humanity in the face of catastrophe. Only America appeal. It's important that those affected by these devastating storms know that even if the path to recovery feels like a road that goes on forever, we're with them for the long haul," President George H.W. Bush said. The elder Bush and the volunteer programs he started came in for special praise before the crowd of Texans. He sets an example for all of us, as does First Lady Barbara Bush, Obama said. I speak for the folks right here when I say we really admire and love George H.W. Bush, the younger Bush said. Carter told the crowd that Habitat for Humanity, a non-profit HES worked with for 36 years, has agreed to build 6,000 homes in devastated areas. The group has raised $20 million of a needed $100 million, he said. Clinton noted the nation's long history of volunteering. We've been volunteering since before the Constitution, when Benjamin Franklin organized the first volunteer fire department in Philadelphia. As of Saturday night, the One Heart effort had raised $31 million in tax-deductible, private funds from more than 80,000 donors, according to organizers. The concert is not the first time the former presidents have joined forces. After Hurricane Harvey struck Texas in September, all five started the One America Appeal charity effort and filmed a video urging citizens to help out amid the devastating flooding. They have since resumed the effort in the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria. "We love you, Texas," the elder Bush said in a video. A Florida teacher was arrested Friday, October 20, after she was accused of having an improper relationship with a female student. According to the Orlando Sentinel, Jacqueline Truman, 30, allegedly sustained a 2-month relationship with a 15-year-old student. During this time, the two engaged in sexual activity multiple times at Agate High School in Oviedo, Florida. Read more. Kindergarten teacher sentenced to prison for having sex with several students. Truman, who served as a substitute teacher at Agate during the time of the relationship, was placed on paid administrative leave on October 2 after the Seminole County Public Schools received a report of the allegations from Child Protective Services. Florida teacher arrested for alleged sexual relationship with female student. WFTV reports that the school district had started performing background checks prior to hiring Truman full-time, and her records had been clean, but reports of the inappropriate relationship hindered the process. During the time frame, the teacher had already turned in her resignation to the district, which actually was effective and final Thursday, October 19, the school district's spokesman told the station. Therefore, this individual is no longer an employee of SCPS. Truman turned herself in the same day and was booked on 2 counts of lewd acts on a minor student. File in this January 26, 2016. File photo. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is joined by Joe Arpaio, the sheriff of Metro Phoenix, at a campaign event in Marshalltown, Iowa. App photo. Mary Altafa. File Mary. Washington. CNN. President Donald Trump's level of presidential concern for military families mourning loved ones has proven inconsistent with previous presidents in the same position, former CIA Director John Brennan said Wednesday. Brennan reflected during a question-and-answer session at Fordham University Law School on his experiences observing Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Barack Obama at times of great pain and anguish after U.S. citizens' lives had been lost. The solemnity with which they treated those situations and interacted with families and loved ones, and just how important that responsibility was. I was very impressed that all of them acted so presidential in those cases, Brennan said. Trump has been flooded with criticism after it took the White House nearly 2 weeks to openly comment on the deaths of 4 U.S. service members killed in Niger during an ambush. Some of Trump's actions suggesting falsely that Obama had not contacted Gold Star families and, according to Democratic Rep. Frederica Wilson, telling a grieving widow that her husband knew what he signed up for did not show that type of respect to military families, Brennan suggested. Mr. Trump has his own ways of dealing with things that I see as inconsistent with what some of his predecessors have done and how they've treated it, Brennan said. I'm not going to dignify in any way some of the comments that have been made, which I think does not underscore the importance, the significance, the sacrifice of these individuals. Trump called Wilson's retelling of that call, which she says she heard on a speakerphone, totally fabricated. While speaking at a news conference Monday, Trump noted that he had written letters to the families of the U.S. troops slain in Niger and added he had plans to call them this week, but the controversy boiled over when he then also claimed previous presidents hadn't written or called families of service members killed in action. Brennan called Trump's frequent desire to show himself favorably compared to his predecessors unfortunate. I think that one can highlight what they're doing and the importance of what they're doing without dragging down either predecessors or previous things, Brennan said. To me that's much more presidential as well as constructive. Brennan compared Trump's handling of the Niger attack when the president spoke in front of the CIA's memorial wall honoring agency employees killed in service of the U.S. just days after he had been sworn into office, and touted the crowd size at his inauguration, which Brennan also took issue with. when Mr. Trump was at CIA's headquarters lobby 2 days after inauguration in front of the memorial wall where the 117 stars, many of those stars represent individuals I knew. Former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama are offering sharp criticism of the current political climate. Neither mentioned President Trump during separate and unrelated appearances Thursday, but both men appeared to rebuke him. "Folks don't feel good right now about what they see," Mr. Obama said at a campaign event in Virginia. "It is common practice for former presidents to hold back criticism of the person currently holding office." Mr. Obama didn't name names. He didn't have to, reports CBS News correspondent Juliana Goldman. "We've got folks who are deliberately trying to make folks angry, to demonize people who have different ideas, to get the base all riled up because it provides a short-term tactical advantage," Mr. Obama said. Earlier in New Jersey, Mr. Obama said Americans were confronting the same politics of division that date back centuries. "We thought we put that to bed. That's folks looking 50 years back," Mr. Obama said. Also Thursday, appearing before a packed room in New York, Mr. Bush said America has to recover our own identity. "At times it can seem like the forces pulling us apart are stronger than the forces binding us together," Mr. Bush said. He warned that the current discourse was undermining American democracy. "Our politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication," Mr. Bush said, adding, "We've seen nationalism distorted into nativism. People of every race, religion, ethnicity can be fully and equally American. It means that bigotry or white supremacy in any form is blasphemy against the American creed." When asked if Mr. Bush's speech, former Seminole County teacher accused of having sex with teenage girl copy link copy shortcut to copy link copied updated 9:32 p.m. EDT October 20, 2017 high transcript show transcript WEBVTTHNITALLSTARTED greater than is there anything you want TOSAY for yourself to YOURSTUDENTS are there any PEOPLEINVOLVED former Seminole COUNTYSCHOOLTEACHER Jacqueline Truman HADNOTHING to say about BEINGACCUSED if having a SEXUALRELATIONSHIP with a 15 YAROLDFEMALE student more than YARAGO. Truman was working at HAGERTYHIGH school as a SUBSTITUTETEACHER when the teen says THERELATIONSHIP began. The teen alleges that some OFDHE sexual encounters HAPPENEDINA classroom greater than that is where UWOULDEXPECT this to be a safe ZONEFOR this child and instead THATTRUST was violated. Gale the allegations were NOTREPORTED until October 4 greater than it's not uncommon FORYOUTHFUL victims to need time TONEED time to process WHATTHEY have been through. Gale detectives say the TENTOLDA trusted adult she HADBEN involved in an ONGOINGSEXUAL relationship. The arrest report says THEVICTIM stated that the SEXUALINTERCOURSE was consensual BYBOTH parties, but the law says a minor CANNEVER give consent to having SEXWITH an adult. Most recently, Jacqueline TRUMANTAUGHT here at Lake Howell High School when these ALLEGATIONSWERE reported she was placed on ADMINISTRATIVELEAVE when the report was MADETO Child Protective Services. Truman had already turned in HERESIGNATION to the DISTRICTEFFECTIVE Thursday. "We want to make sure you're SIDEOF the story, so if DHERESANYCOMMENT whatsoever, we would be EGLAD to talk to you. Greater than no thank you." Gale Jacqueline Truman started in 2005 at Lyman High School. Greater than were concerned THEREPOTENTILLY could be other former Seminole County teacher accused of having sex with teenage girl copy link copy shortcut to copy link copied updated 9:32 p.m. EDT October 20, 2017 Orlando, Florida. A former Lake Howell High School teacher is facing charges after being accused of having sexual relationship with a student, authorities said. Jacqueline Truman, 30, of Orlando is accused of having sexual contact with a 15-year-old girl starting in March of 2016 and continuing for 2 months. At the time of the allegations, Truman worked at Agate High School as a long-term substitute teacher. The victim told deputies the sex between the pair was consensual. Investigators said that because the victim was a minor, she was not able to consent to sexual contact with Truman. Truman was placed on administrative leave when a report was made to Child Protective Services about the allegations. Truman turned in her resignation to the Authorities charged a man with murder after he gave a 3-year-old boy a gun and told him to chase the victim. Albert Davis, 31, gave the gun to the boy on Tuesday and told him to chase Timothy Johnson, 24, around the yard of the Warrenville, SC, home, authorities said. The gun went off in the child's hands, and a bullet struck Johnson in the chest, according to Sergeant Stephen Shun of Aiken County Sheriff's Department. Police are still investigating why Davis gave the child the gun and whether Davis was angry at Johnson, Shun said. Political megadonor Tom Steyer is funding an 8-figure TV ad campaign to demand that elected officials take a stand on impeaching President Trump. A Republican Congress once impeached a president for far less, and today people in Congress and his own administration know that this president is a clear and present danger, Steyer says in the ad, which directs viewers to a new Need to Impeach website. The TV spot will be supplemented by a 7-figure social media buy. The campaign, which was previewed last week by the New York Times, is not a project of Steyer's political organization, Next Gen America. It is funded directly by Steyer, a donor who has not ruled out a run for office himself and who has built relationships with think tanks and elected Democrats in California and Washington. Visitors to Steyer's new website see a compilation of news articles about Trump's decisions, and a long open letter from Steyer with a litany of reasons for politicians to remove Trump from office. Finally, there is an offer to sign up with the campaign. He is repealing clean air protections and unleashing polluters, even as increasingly catastrophic natural disasters supercharged by our warming planet ravaged the country throughout the summer, Steyer writes. He has threatened to reduce aid for millions of American citizens in Puerto Rico who are struggling to survive without drinkable water or electricity, a move that would be a total dereliction of his duty. And every day, Americans are left bracing for a Twitter screed that could set off a nuclear war. To date, few elected Democrats have called for impeaching the president before the independent investigation headed by Robert S. Mueller III wraps up its work. In the House, Reps. Al Green DTEX, and Brad Sherman D. Califf, 2 backbenchers from safe seats, have introduced articles of impeachment with no real hope of being adopted. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, who once fended off liberal demands that her party impeach President George W. Bush, said this summer that Trump might well self-impeach as he tumbled from controversy to controversy. Republicans, meanwhile, have looked at the impeachment chatter as a potential way to motivate the donors and base. At an August retreat in Wyoming organized by House Speaker Paul D. Ryan, R-Wis, donors were warned that a Democratic takeover of the House would put Rep. Elijah E. Cummings DMD in charge of the House Oversight Committee, a perch where he could launch endless investigations with unlimited subpoena power. But so far talk about impeachment, or about invoking the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, which would allow the president's cabinet to remove him from office, has not been embraced by the Democratic Party's leaders. Removing Trump after an impeachment in the House would take the votes of 67 senators, leading many Democrats to consider the issue a distraction. Last Sunday, the publisher of Hustler magazine, Larry Flynt, put a full-page ad in the Washington Post offering $10 million for information leading to Trump's impeachment and removal from office. In the Wanted Post-style ad, Flynt listed a range of accusations against Trump including massive conflicts of interest and gross nepotism and appointment of unqualified persons to. When Melania Trump stepped onto the stage with her husband, President Donald Trump, at his inauguration in January, she was wearing a piece of history. Getty Images. The Trumps arrive at the Freedom Inaugural Ball on January 20, 2017 in Washington, D.C. The white, off-the-shoulder gown she wore that night just went on permanent display at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, in keeping with the time-honored tradition of First Ladies donating their inaugural ball gowns to the museum. Mrs. Trump made a short speech at the museum on October 20 to mark the donation of the dress, a silk crepe gown with a slit skirt, a cascading ruffle, and a slim, red ribbon around the waist. She took a moment to recognize the gown's creator, Hervé Pierre, who has also designed for Hillary Clinton, Laura Bush and Michelle Obama. "I have had a passion for design from a very young age, and had a very precise idea of what I wanted for such a historic evening," the First Lady told the crowd. "I wanted to work with someone who would do more than just design a dress. I wanted someone who would be willing to collaborate with me." She said she worked with Pierre to create a modern, sleek, light, unique and unexpected look and was so pleased with our end result. Up Getty Images. Mrs. Trump poses alongside her inaugural ball gown, which she donated to the Smithsonian's First Ladies collection. Mrs. Trump also thanked Pierre for creating such an impressive gown in such a limited time, and hinted at some of the stress she and her family faced in the weeks leading up to the inauguration. "As most of you know, before being elected president, my husband was never in politics. So you can imagine that after he won, we were very busy with all that goes into preparing for a new administration and all the changes that we as a family would be facing," the First Lady said. "To be honest, what I would wear to the inaugural ball was the last thing on my mind. In fact, by the time I got around to thinking about my wardrobe choice, poor Hervé was only given 2 weeks to design and produce this couture piece." Getty Images. The First Lady wanted her inaugural ball gown to be modern, sleek and light. First Ladies have been giving the dresses to the Smithsonian for more than 100 years. Helen Taft started the tradition when she donated the gown she wore to her husband's 1909 inauguration, and since then, every First Lady who attended an inaugural ball has donated her dress to the museum in Washington, D.C. Mrs. Trump said she felt honored to participate in this long-standing tradition. AFP. Getty Images. Melania Trump poses alongside her inaugural ball gown, which is now on permanent display at the Smithsonian's Museum of American History. First Lady Melania Trump is keeping a lean staff list on payroll compared to other recent First Ladies, Fox News reported Friday. Melania Trump has a smaller group of aides compared to her predecessor, Michelle Obama. Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama. Michelle Obama criticizes lack of diversity in politics. "One side is all white, all men." Obama interrupts Michelle's appearance with 25th anniversary tribute. Michelle Obama. "Young people feel what's happening now, not what they were taught more," according to the news outlet's analysis of White House personnel reports. Her communications director, Stephanie Grisham, says the smaller East Wing operations are a deliberate decision. As with all things that she does, she is being very deliberate in her hiring, focusing on quality over quantity, Grisham told Fox News in an email. It is important to her that the team is a good fit for what she wants to accomplish as First Lady, and that everyone works well together. She also wants to be mindful and responsible when it comes to taxpayer money. Grisham told the news outlet this week that 9 people serve the First Lady, 5 more than listed in the annual report that came out in June. The 4 listed on the reported roster for Melania Trump are paid a salary total of $486,700. It is unclear how much she pays for the additional 5 aides serving on her team, or whether those salaries come out of a different budget. During former President Barack Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, George W. Bush honors father at benefit for hurricane victims. Dem Senator, "I miss every one of our last 5 presidents. All 5 living former presidents appear at hurricane relief benefit concert." Moore's first year in office, Michelle Obama had 16 people listed under the First Lady's staffing roster, whose salaries totaled $1.24 million a year, according to the report. Some Obama administration officials say the total was likely close to 24, with some staffers serving on the team under a different title. Michelle Obama's staff included more roles for press aides, a director of policy and projects, a personal aide and others to help with her office's operations, according to the report. If it was indeed 24 staffers, a 2009 factcheck.org story claimed it could be a record for First Lady aides. Obama took on a busy agenda at the start of her husband's term, pushing initiatives like Let's Move, her campaign against child obesity. In comparison, Melania Trump remained in New York during the first few months of the Trump presidency while her son Barron Trump finished the school year. Melania Trump's inaugural ball gown is headed to the Smithsonian, just like Michelle Obama's and those of First Ladies past. The First Lady will donate the white silk, off-shoulder dress with a thin red waist bow and leg stitch to the National Museum of American History on Friday morning, the Washington Examiner reported on Wednesday. She wore it at the first of 3 inaugural balls on January 20. Designer Hervé Pierre told Harper's Bazaar that he followed Melania Trump's request for a simple and elegant dress. Keep up with this story and more by subscribing now. The lines are as sleek as a paper cut, the curves of the skirt are fluid, yet the overall shape is sharp and intense. For me it reflects her personality, Pierre said. It was important for us not to follow any recipe for a First Lady gown. Recalling the inaugural night, Pierre said, the president walked in and saw her for the first time. He said, "Whoa, that's really gorgeous." Trump's gown will be unveiled at a private event with 200 guests at Flag Hall in the Capitol, hosted by Smithsonian Institution Secretary David Scorton and the museum's director John Gray, then put on display for the public. Pierre said he will definitely be on hand. "I got chills. I know how in the designer world, there are lots of big egos. I have always tried to manage my ego for many, many years," Pierre told Women's Wear Daily. "But in this case, there is nothing to be ashamed of. It's a big ego thing. I'm really, really proud of it." Former First Lady Michelle Obama has had gowns from both of her husband's inaugural balls accepted by the Smithsonian Museum. Obama's 2009 gown was similar to Trump's in its white silk detail, but was one-shouldered, chiffon and embellished with organza flowers that had Swarovski crystal centers. Her 2013 inaugural number was a long, ruby-colored chiffon gown with a cross-halter strap neckline and scoop back. Both were designed by Jason Wu. The First Lady's collection has been one of the most popular displays at the Smithsonian Institution, and the original exhibition in 1914 was the first at the Smithsonian to feature women prominently. It contains more than 24 gowns, including those worn by Laura Bush, Jacqueline Kennedy, Lou Hoover and Frances Cleveland, and encourages visitors to consider the changing role played by the First Lady and American women over the past 200 years. First Lady Melania Trump will be donating the gown she wore to the first of 3 inaugural balls to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History on Friday morning, the White House said. The designer of Trump's white silk off-the-shoulder gown told Women's Wear Daily that I'll be attending the event with the First Lady. "She asked me if I wanted to be her date, and I said, oh hell, yes," Hervé Pierre said. "As a foreigner who became an American, to have your gown put in the Smithsonian Museum is a big huge honor. I got chills." Pierre recalled the night of the ball when President Trump saw his wife in the dress for the first time. He said, "Whoa, that's really gorgeous," Pierre said. Melania, members of Trump's family and campaign staff, including Donald Trump Jr. and Kellyanne Conway, promoted tweets affiliated with a Russian troll farm during the 2016 election, a new report says. An account that claimed to be the unofficial Twitter account of Tennessee Republicans used the username at 10GOP and was run by the Russian-backed internet research agency, according to the Daily Beast. Conway, Trump's campaign manager at the time, retweeted 2 days before the 2016 election one of 10 GOP's tweets that said, "Mother of jailed sailor hold Hillary to same standards as my son on classified info. Hillary Smale Winegate." Brad Parscale, Trump's digital director on the campaign, also retweeted one of the posts that read, "Thousands of deplorables chanting to the media, tell the truth RT if you are also done W." Biased media. Trump Jr. had followed the account and had retweeted the posts on 3 different occasions. 1 week before the election, he retweeted, "Breaking voter fraud by counting tens of thousands of ineligible mail-in Hillary votes being reported in Broward County, Florida. Please, RT." On Election Day, he also retweeted a post that read, "This vet passed away last month before he could vote for Trump. Here he is in his MAGA hat, voted Election Day." Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn also retweeted the account on at least 1 occasion, and his son retweeted the account a total of 34 times. After Flynn was fired in February after it was disclosed he misled the Trump administration about his contacts with Russian officials, the account promoted for Flynn to be reappointed as National Security Advisor. The account, which was created in November 2015 and attracted more than 100,000 followers, was suspended in August. The Senate Intelligence Committee met with Twitter earlier this month to discuss how Russia interfered with the election on Twitter. The committee also invited Twitter, Facebook, and Alphabet, Google's parent company. Shutterstock police and school officials in Virginia are investigating repugnant Snapchat videos showing middle school football players simulating sex acts with black students while shouting racist remarks. The disturbing videos show black students from Short Pump Middle School in Glen Allen pinned to the ground of a locker room with other students on top of them, NBC 12 reported. One of the aggressors included a white student, a parent told CBS 6. One of the Snapchat captions reads, "We gonna expletive the black out of these African-American children from Uganda." Henrico police said they were made aware of the video Tuesday and are investigating. In an email to parents, Short Pump principal Thomas McCauley called the video appalling, disturbing and inexcusable. "I and the administrative team of Short Pump Middle School are handling this matter with the seriousness it deserves," McCauley wrote. "This includes taking appropriate actions to address what occurred and to prevent it from ever happening again." Henrico County Schools spokesman Andy Jenks said the district would take appropriate action, the contents of which are offensive and wrong. "The school division will take appropriate action in accordance with our normal procedures," said Jenks. Beyond that, federal law prohibits school divisions from sharing additional information about students. Local community groups are calling on the feds to step in. "What we will be doing is filing a federal complaint with the Office of Civil Rights," Lorraine Wright with the I Vote for Me human rights group told NBC 12. Close Vice President Mike Pence and his wife, Karen, paused Friday at the Indianapolis International Airport for a selfie with Stephanie Eastman of Indianapolis and her daughter Kaylee, September 22, 2017. Stephanie's husband, Jason, is serving in Iraq. Robert King, Washington. Vice President Mike Pence will be in southern Indiana on Saturday for a celebration of his son's marriage last year. The reception is in Brown County State Park, according to someone who knows the family. The park's property manager told the Herald-Times in Bloomington on Friday that Pence's visit will not affect regular visitors to the park, one of the nation's largest state parks. Pence's office confirmed the event but did not want to elaborate further on a private family event. Pence's son, Michael, a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, married Sarah Whiteside at the governor's residence in December. The wedding was a small, intimate ceremony just for immediate family, Pence said at the time as he was in transition from being Indiana's governor to vice president. The couple met in 2013 in a political science class at Purdue University. Pence's children, including daughters Charlotte and Audrey, have participated in some public events with the parents since last year's election. Couldn't visit Australia without seeing the kangaroos. Karen, Charlotte, or Audrey and I enjoying our morning visit to a Taronga Zoo. vpinorspic.twitter.com. Nip Vice President Pence at VP April 23, 2017. The night before her husband's inauguration, Karen Pence spoke to reporters about the challenges of balancing family life in the public spotlight. "My son Michael said to us when Mike got elected governor, he said, 'Mom, my favorite quote of yours is, I'm not going to let what's happening out there affect what's going on in here,' Pence said. Now that I have grown children, we all make that effort to keep the family kind of protected and private. We're just going to move forward as a family." Pence was last in Indiana on October 8 for the Indianapolis Colts game where former quarterback Peyton Manning was being honored at halftime. But Pence left after the national anthem when some of the San Francisco 49ers knelt to raise awareness of racial inequalities in the nation. Pence was accused of wasting taxpayers' dollars on a political stunt. Congressional Democrats have asked the Secret Service to detail the cost and staffing for the trip. Pence has said he had long planned to attend the game, but couldn't stay after the players knelt. Pence was also in Indiana last month to push for an overhaul of the federal tax code. Pence had planned to do another tax-related event in Indiana on Friday, but that had to be postponed in case his vote was needed in the Senate to help pass a budget blueprint. The new date for the tax event has not been set. Contact Maureen Groff. Hikers Rachel Nguyen and Joseph Obzo were reported missing July 28. They had been rationing food and had no water, investigators say. CNN California couple Rachel Nguyen and Joseph Obzo went missing 3 months ago in Joshua Tree National Park. Searchers found them shot dead this week, locked in an embrace, officials say. Based on evidence located at the scene, detectives believe Obzo shot Nguyen, then shot himself, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department said in a statement. A gun found near the bodies was registered to Obzo, officials said. The owner of a bed-and breakfast near the park reported the couple missing July 28 after they failed to check out of the room, according to authorities. He told deputies that his guests possibly went hiking at Joshua Tree National Park. Nguyen, 20, and Obzo, 22, of Orange County were found dead this week in a rugged canyon with boulders in a remote area of the park. Police identified them Thursday. Desperate situation water bottles and food wrappers led the group to the bodies, CNN affiliate KABC reported. Cindy Bachman, a spokeswoman for the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, told KABC that detectives believe the couple may have perceived they had no way out. They have nothing to suggest that Joseph had any intent to harm Rachel, just that they probably found themselves in a very dire situation, Bachman told the TV station. Investigators said the two used clothing to cover part of their bodies from the sun. It appears they had been rationing food and had no water, according to the sheriff's department. The search, more than 250 searchers, including dog teams and helicopters, looked for the couple for days after authorities found their car near the Maze Loop trailhead, a popular trail. During the initial search, more than 10 people were injured and others dehydrated when temperatures reached 100 degrees, according to the sheriff's department. A week later, authorities evaluated the continuing risk to personnel versus the reward of finding the couple alive and decided to scale back the search, the department statement said. Obzo's father then joined a volunteer rescue team that combed through miles of cliffs and boulders every weekend. I believed that I was going to find them. I didn't know when, but I had my answer today, Gilbert Obzo told CNN affiliate KESQ earlier this week. He said details show the deaths on the tough terrain may have been a result. Mitch McConnell answers questions following the weekly Republican policy luncheon at the U.S. Capitol November 13, 2014 in Washington, D.C. Win McNamee images the Republican drive to confirm federal judges has gained momentum from a series of actions by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. They seem modest but likely to speed up the confirmation of both appeals and district court judges, conservatives, for the most part. Democrats won't be pleased. The steps McConnell has taken in recent weeks are aimed at thwarting their efforts to block, sideline, or delay President Trump's nominees. Here's what McConnell has done. Confirming judicial nominees has been elevated to a top priority in the Senate. I decide the priority, McConnell said in an interview. Priority between an assistant secretary of state and a conservative court judge. It's not a hard choice to make. And when nominees come out of committee, I guarantee they will be dealt with, McConnell said. Regardless of what tactics are used by Democrats, the judges are going to be confirmed. No longer will blue slips be allowed to deny a nominee a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing and vote on confirmation. In the past, senators have sometimes barred a nominee from the state by refusing to return the slip to the committee, thus preventing a hearing and confirmation. The majority, that is, Republicans, will treat a blue slip as simply notification of how you're going to vote, not as an opportunity to blackball, McConnell told me. The use of blue slips, he noted, is not a Senate rule and has been honored in the breach over the years. Now it won't be honored at all. The so-called 30 hours rule, which provides for 30 hours of debate on a nominee, won't be overturned. But McConnell vowed to set aside time for these debates. And he can make this happen because he sets the Senate schedule. The majority leader has been under pressure recently from conservative groups to get more court nominees approved by the Judiciary Committee, and more rapidly, and sent to the Senate floor. McConnell had long prodded the committee to increase the number of hearings, then report the nominees out as quickly as possible for Senate floor votes. One of McConnell's critics is the Judicial Crisis Network, which promotes the nomination of more conservatives. It planned to run an ad urging McConnell to accelerate the pace of dealing with nominees but held off after talking to his aides, Politico reported. Another group, the Conservative Action Project, released a memo calling on McConnell to immediately schedule committee and floor action every Thursday and Friday for the foreseeable future to confirm judges and administration officials. In the interview, McConnell said it takes a while to get more judicial nominees in the pipelines. But the White House has begun turning out. Linda Davidson, The Washington Post. Getty Images. The waiting room at Mary's Center in Washington, D.C. on February 24, 2014. Mary's Center is a non-profit health center for the underserved, uninsured or underinsured. The number of adults without health insurance has increased 1.4 percentage points since the end of 2016, partially reversing the gains in health coverage seen since the implementation of Obamacare. The nation's uninsured rate, which fell to a record low of 10.9% in the last half of 2016, is now 12.3%, according to a Gallup Share Care Wellbeing Index survey released Friday. That increase represents almost 3.5 million Americans who became uninsured in the time since Obamacare opponent Donald Trump was elected president and took office. And the uninsured rate is now the highest recorded since the end of 2014, when it stood at 12.9%. Gallup's report on the findings said the uninsured rate for the third quarter of this year rose by 0.6 percentage point from the previous quarter. That report warned that unless Trump and Congress take action to stabilize Obamacare markets, the number of uninsured Americans likely will continue to rise. The growth in the uninsured since late 2016 has been concentrated in middle-aged adults, racial minorities and low-income people, according to Gallup, whose survey is based more than 45,000 interviews with adults. Still, the uninsured rate remains well below its peak of 18% measured in the third quarter of 2013, according to Gallup's report. That time frame was right before Obamacare marketplaces began selling subsidized individual health plans, and before implementation of the rule requiring most Americans to have some form of health coverage or pay a fine. Despite Gallup's warnings about likely future increases in the uninsured rate, it is not clear that Trump or Congress will act to avert that from happening. Trump last week cut off key federal payments to insurers, which will trigger higher Obamacare premiums. The president also signed an executive order that could further undercut Obamacare markets. However, a bipartisan bill introduced in the Senate this week is seeking to shore up the Obamacare markets, at least in the short term. Gallup said several factors may have contributed to the increase in the uninsured rate. They include a decrease in competition among insurers in some Obamacare marketplaces, driving up insurance prices. Uncertainty about the health care law also may be driving the increase, Gallup's report said. Congressional Republicans' attempts to replace the health care law may be causing consumers to question whether the government will enforce the penalty for not having insurance. The report said that the biggest decline in the type of health coverage Americans have obtained since 2016, by far, has been among people who buy their own individual health plans, such as those sold on Obamacare exchanges. The percentage of adults with self-paid plans has fallen by 1.3 points, from 21.3% to 20%. This ongoing push for gender equality, it's much ado about nothing, says a majority of Republicans. In a report out Wednesday, the Pew Research Center found that 54% of Republicans are those who lean Republican say the country has been about right when it comes to giving women equal rights with men. Another 18% say the U.S. has gone too far in this regard. 26%, meanwhile, say the U.S. hasn't done enough. These results, compared to those for Democrats, point to a dramatic partisan divide in the U.S. on the topic of gender equality. Among Democrats are those who are left-leaning. 69% say the U.S. must do more to ensure women equal rights, 26% say things are about right, and 4% say efforts towards such an end are excessive. Not all Democrats hold the same views on gender equality, however, and the division was mainly between those with and without a college education. While 81% of bachelor's degree holders and 73% of those with some college experience say the country needs to do more on this front, just 55% of those with a high school diploma or less say the same. Republicans' views are consistent across education levels. Subscribe the broadsheet, Fortune's newsletter on powerful women. The country is sharply divided over how much work remains to be done on achieving equality, and those divisions are rooted mainly in the growing partisan schism that pervades American values and culture these days, the report says. The divide between Republicans and Democrats is apparent throughout the paper, which is based on responses from 4,573 people. Democrats 49% more likely than Republicans, 19% to say that men have easier lives than women these days. A larger share of Democrats, 58%, than Republicans, 36%, say that evolving gender roles have made it easier for women to lead satisfying lives. A larger share of Democrats, 48%, than Republicans, 30%, also say that such changes have made it easier for men to lead satisfying lives. Despite Republicans' apparent satisfaction with gender equality in the U.S., the Pew report, conducted August through September, also details just how disadvantaged women remain. According to its results, 43% of women report having experienced discrimination or unfair treatment because of their gender, compared to 18% of men. And despite the tremendous gains women have made in the labor force in recent decades, the wages still lag men's due to child care responsibilities, bias, stereotypical gender norms, and their limited access to male-dominated networks, and they remain underrepresented in key leadership positions. The most recent Fortune 500 list for Rosemont Hill authorities in suburban Chicago have closed their investigation into the death of a woman whose body was found inside a hotel walk-in freezer. Rosemont Police Chief Donald E. Stevens III said in a statement Friday the death of 19-year-old Kenika Jenkins was a sad accident. With this latest release of information, police announced that they are closing the case. You can read the full 4-page news release from the Rosemont Police Department here. Here is the approximate timeline of events surrounding Jenkins' death from police. Friday, September 8, 11:30 p.m. as Jenkins leaves her home on the west side of Chicago. Saturday, September 9, 1:13 a.m. as Jenkins arrives at the Crowne Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel, 5440 North River Road, Rosemont, Illinois, to attend a private party in a hotel room. 3:25 a.m. as Jenkins is seen on CCTV exiting a low-level elevator. 3:32 a.m. as Jenkins is last seen on CCTV as she moves through a first-floor kitchen. 7:14 a.m. Rosemont Public Safety receives a call from Teresa Martin, was Jenkins' mother, saying that she can't find her daughter. 12:46 p.m. as Jenkins' sister arrives at the Rosemont police station to file a missing persons report. As Jenkins is then entered into a law enforcement database for missing persons. At this time, officers respond to the Crowne Plaza Hotel to investigate the missing person. Initial information obtained and searches conducted within the Crowne Plaza Hotel did not indicate whether or not Ms. Jenkins left the Crowne Plaza Hotel. 8:29 p.m. officers respond back to the Crowne Plaza Hotel. Further searches are conducted as more CCTV is reviewed. Searches of the Crowne Plaza Hotel continued throughout the night. More resources were deployed to search the hotel as additional information was obtained through the CCTV. Sunday, September 10, 12:25 a.m. as Jenkins' body is discovered by Crowne Plaza Hotel employee. Ms. Jenkins was pronounced dead at the scene by a Resurrection Hospital doctor via medical control. 3:08 a.m. The Cook County Medical Examiner investigator arrives. 5:10 a.m. as Jenkins' body is removed from the Crowne Plaza Hotel and transported to the medical examiner's office. Ms. Jenkins' mother and sister are able to view the body of Kenika Jenkins prior to being removed. Friday, October 6, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office releases the autopsy report, which lists the cause of death as hypothermia and the manner of death as accidental. Alcohol and a prescription drug are listed as contributing factors to her death. Jenkins' body was found September 10 in a walk-in freezer at a Rosemont hotel where she had been attending a party. She was found about 24 hours after relatives contacted the hotel and police to report her missing. Surveillance video. Officials were contending with new fires in Northern California on Tuesday as progress continued on the blazes that have ravaged wine country. 5 firefighters were injured in a fast-moving wildfire in the Santa Cruz Mountains, one of several wildfires burning across California. The Bear Fire in Boulder Creek had burned more than 150 acres Tuesday and was 5% contained, officials said. About 150 people have been evacuated. To the north in Sausalito, firefighters battled 2 small vegetation fires near the 101 freeway. The Marin County Sheriff urged people living near the fires to evacuate but eventually lifted that order. The southbound 101 freeway was closed temporarily in the community of Marin City, according to the Mill Valley Police Department. The California Highway Patrol warned of delays on the freeway. A third brush fire was reported in the East Bay city of Dublin. The city urged residents to stay away from the area. A shelter-in-place order was issued for the Dublin Ranch area. Alameda County fire officials said the blaze had burned 100 acres but 75% contained. Elsewhere in the state, authorities evacuated at least a dozen people from Mount Wilson on Tuesday morning, as a 30-acre wildfire burning in the San Gabriel Mountains threatened to damage the historic mountaintop observatory and an array of television broadcast towers, according to officials. Meanwhile, in wine country, more people returned to their homes on Tuesday. Officials continued the search for dozens of missing people, and fire crews gained additional ground on the deadly blazes that have scorched more than 210,000 acres and killed at least 41. The four largest fires there were, or more than 50%, contained as of Tuesday morning. The 52,894-acre Nuns fire, which gave firefighters the most trouble over the weekend, was 68% contained. Crews made progress against the two parts of the fire closest to the cities of Sonoma and Santa Rosa, officials told firefighters at a morning briefing at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. Some parts of the area remained evacuated. Today and the next few days, there's a lot less smoke in the air and a lot less media attention here, but the job's not done, said Steve Crawford, Operations Section Chief for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Caption: also death toll rises to 42 as containment increases in Northern California fires. Firefighters face rough terrain as they battle Mount Wilson blaze. These are some of the victims of the Northern California firestorm. Update 6 p.m. Updated with Dublin details 4 p.m. The article was updated with Dublin fire acreage. 3:35 p.m. This article was updated with details about the Dublin fire. 2 p.m. This article was updated with freeway status. 1:31 p.m. This article was updated with new details in Marin County. 1:10 p.m. This article was updated with news about a new fire in Sausalito. This article was originally published at 1:35 p.m. Wildfires California. Former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon is on the verge of becoming Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer's favorite person and Donald Trump's worst enemy. Bannon's so-called war against the GOP establishment is the worst strategic action Republicans could take right now. He is planning to find primary challenges for 6 of the 7 Republican senators running for re-election in 2018. Only Senator Ted Cruz has been spared his wrath. Senator Bob Corker's decision to not seek a third term leaves an 8th Republican-controlled seat open. As I said on Martha McCallum's show, The Story, this week, Bannon's plan is the wrong strategy. Every single senator that Bannon is trying to replace has overwhelmingly supported the Trump agenda. All voted to repeal Obamacare, all supported President Trump's cabinet nominations, all supported the American Health Care Act, all supported the so-called skinny repeal of Obamacare, and all voted to confirm conservative Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. Data analyst Nate Silver's 538 website has tracked how these 6 Republicans, and other lawmakers, have voted on legislation that supports President Trump's agenda. While there are many conservatives, myself included, frustrated with the pace of progress in Washington, the data makes it clear that these senators are not the ones slowing things down. John Barrasso 95.9%, Orrin Hatch 95.9%, Roger Wicker 95.9%, Deb Fisher 91.8%, Jeff Flake 91.5%, Dean Heller 89.8%. Each one of these Republicans is also very likely to vote for the Trump Republican tax cut, as well as future legislation to repeal and replace Obamacare. In fact, 3 of them have voted with Trump's agenda just as often as Cruz has. Cruz was tracked at 93.9% on the 538 website. At the same time, there are 23 Senate Democrats up for re-election in 2018, as well as 2 independent senators who caucus with the Democrats. All 25 of these left-wing senators have opposed every attempt to repeal Obamacare, voted against the American Health Care Act, and only 3 supported Gorsuch's confirmation. Among these Democrats, only Joe Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp have supported Trump initiatives more than half the time, largely out of fear of being voted out of office. This leads to the key point: 10 of these Democrat-held seats, including the ones held by Manchin and Heitkamp, are in states which President Trump won in 2016. At least 6 are seriously vulnerable. Does Bannon really think it's more important to get rid of people like Barroso and Hatcher with the president 95.9% of the time than it is to replace John Tester 38.8%, Bill Nelson 36.7%, or Sherrod Brown 30.6% if we are serious about enacting? Just under 54 years ago, 2 years into his presidency, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated on a visit to Dallas, Texas. An investigation by the Warren Commission determined a former U.S. Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy from a nearby book depository, but the murky facts of the case have led to a number of alternate theories. They include a CIA conspiracy, a mafia hit job, a covert operation by Lyndon B. Johnson, and more. In anticipation of the National Archives releasing 3,100 documents related to the assassination on October 26, here is Sen. Ted Cruz, R. Texas, the Zodiac Killer, the infamous Northern California serial killer from the late 1960s and early 1970s. Not a chance. But the internet rumor turned meme that has ensnared Cruz for much of the past 2 years has finally come full circle, with the Texas senator himself taking part in the fun. On Wednesday, in a funny exchange on Twitter with his fellow Republican, Sen. Ben Sass, R. Nebraska, Cruz tweeted out what appears to be a cipher known to belong to the serial killer known as the Zodiac eye-popping emoji. The tweet drew a collective stunned expression, and a few I knew it assertions from journalists and political observers who have followed the hilariously sensational, but false, theories that connect Cruz to the Zodiac killer. Jokes aside, Cruz was not and could not possibly be the Zodiac killer, and there is plenty of evidence to dispel this myth, starting with the date of his birthday, which was 1970, or around the same time that the serial killer was committing the infamous murders in California's Bay Area. But that did not, and may never, stop the internet from running with one of the most hilarious memes to dominate Google search results and social media. It is unclear when exactly the association was born, but one blog post on The Verge pointed out that it may have come from a tweet that dates as far back as 2013. The rumor didn't actually go viral until early 2016 when Cruz squared off against Republican opponents during a presidential debate. At the time, comedians seemed determined to make one of several innocuous Google search queries. Among them was how tall is Jeb Bush, turn into a trending topic. According to NPR's Sam Sanders and Paulina Ferozi, I just tweeted out, hey everybody should Google is Ted Cruz the Zodiac Killer and see if we can hit the ticker on there. Nathan Lamani reportedly told NPR about how he photoshopped the Google search query into an image of the debate as if it really happened. Yahoo News once even asked Heidi Cruz, Ted Cruz's wife, about it. Well, I've been married to him for 15 years, and I know pretty well who he is, so it doesn't bother me at all. There's a lot of garbage out there, she said. The rest, of course, is history. Cruz as potentially the Zodiac Killer has been a running joke among journalists, politicians, jokesters. An Orange County man whose body was found alongside his girlfriend's after a nearly 3-month search is believed to have killed her and then himself in Joshua Tree National Park, authorities said Friday. Rachel Nguyen, Wright, and Joseph Orbzo are seen in photos posted to a fundraising page. Joseph Orbzo fatally shot 20-year-old Rachel Nguyen, then shot himself during a hike in the national park in July, according to San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department detectives. After announcing those findings Friday morning, the Sheriff's Department, later in the day, offered further information that suggests the couple could have indeed gotten lost on the hike, as suspected during the lengthy search for them. The couple was found under a tree and had positioned their clothing to cover their extremities and protect them from the sun, the Sheriff's Department said. It appears they had been rationing the food and had no water, the department said in an updated news release. Orbzo and Nguyen were reported missing on July 28 when they did not check out of their Airbnb as scheduled. The vehicle, a burgundy Lexus, was found later that day in the vicinity of the Maze Loop, a popular trail near the park's west entrance, officials said. The Orange County couple planned a trip to the park to celebrate Nguyen's birthday, according to Nguyen's uncle. Searchers looked for Rachel Nguyen and Joseph Orbzo on July 31, 2017. Credit KTLA. A larger-scale, 9-day search for the couple was launched with over 250 search and rescue members, aircraft teams, and canine units looking for the pair. A spokesman for the park told KTLA at the time of the incident that there was no reason to suspect foul play and officials believed the couple had gotten lost in the park. Some 12 months later, hikers found the bodies in a remote area of the park on the morning of October 15. Due to suspicious circumstances and visible injuries to the decedents, detectives from the Specialized Investigations Division Homicide Detail were requested to respond to the location, the Sheriff's Department said in a news release Friday. Due to loss of daylight, the bodies were not recovered until Monday, October 16. Authorities identified the bodies as Obzo and Nguyen between Wednesday and Thursday. Autopsies revealed injuries consistent with a gunshot wound on both bodies, the release stated. Based on evidence located at the scene, detectives believe Obzo shot Nguyen, then shot himself, the Sheriff's Department said. The investigation into Obzo's actions remain under investigation. The gun found near the bodies was registered to Obzo, the Sheriff's Department said. The Sheriff's Department on Friday said Obzo was 22, but previous reporting indicates he was 21. Obzo's father told local TV station KESQ Sunday that Obama hits campaign trail for first time since leaving the White House. The former president is scheduled to make stops in New Jersey and Virginia. He urged crowd in New Jersey to not take the election for granted. Washington CNN. Former President Barack Obama returned the campaign trail Thursday with a warning about the current state of politics in America. Some of the politics we see now, we thought we'd put that to bed. I mean, that's folks looking 50 years back. It's the 21st century, not the 19th century, Obama said during a rally in New Jersey, where he was campaigning for Phil Murphy, the Democratic candidate for governor there. "We're rejecting a politics of division. We're rejecting a politics of fear," Obama continued. "We are embracing a politics that says everybody counts, a politics that says everybody deserves a chance, a politics that says everybody has dignity and worth, a politics of hope." The 44th president did not mention his successor by name in his remarks, which were interrupted with chants of 4 more years from the crowd. President Donald Trump has actively taken steps to attack Obama's legacy in recent weeks, including on Iran, immigration and health care. Beyond his lament about the country's political environment, Obama also stressed the importance of the U.S. remaining a leader on the world stage. "The world counts on America having its act together. The world is looking to us as an example," Obama told the crowd. "The world asks what our values and ideals are, and are we living up to our creed?" The appearance for Murphy, who served as Obama's ambassador to Germany from 2009 to 2013, marked the first foray onto the campaign trail for the former president since he left office in January. Despite public polls showing Murphy with a comfortable lead in the contest with Republican Kim Wadenia, the state's lieutenant governor, Obama urged those in attendance not to rest until Election Day. "You can't take this election or any election for granted," Obama said. "I don't know if you all noticed that. You've got to run through the tape," he added. Obama made another campaign stop Thursday in Virginia, where he campaigned with Lieutenant Gov. Ralph Northam, who is running against Republican Ed Gillespie, a former advisor to George W. Bush and chairman of the Republican National Committee, in the race to succeed Democrat Terry McAuliffe as governor. Speaking at the rally in Richmond, Obama returned to the subject of division in American politics. "We're at our best not when we're trying to put people down, but when we're trying to lift everybody up," the former president remarked. "Folks don't feel good right now about what they see. They don't feel as if our public life reflects our best. Instead of politics reflecting our values, we have politics infecting our communities." Obama also touched on the violent clashes. Ohio State University has denied a request to rent space for white nationalist provocateur Richard Spencer to speak on campus, citing security concerns. An appearance by Spencer at the University of Florida Friday sparked protests, with anti-racism demonstrators confronting white supremacists at the event and jeering at Spencer as he attempted to make a speech. 3 men who had reportedly been making Nazi salutes were arrested Friday and charged with attempted murder after firing at protesters at the event. Keep up with this story and more by subscribing now. The university has deemed that it is not presently able to accommodate Mr. Cameron Paget's request to rent space at the university due to substantial risk to public safety, as well as material and substantial disruption to the work and discipline of the university, a lawyer representing Ohio State said in a letter to an attorney representing Spencer's Associates and obtained by the Associated Press. Attorneys working for Spencer Associate Paget said they would launch a legal challenge to any attempt to prevent the planned appearance at Ohio State University. Richard Spencer of the National Policy Institute arrives on campus at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, to speak at an event not sanctioned by the school on December 6. Spencer salvage Reuters. The die is cast, attorney Kyle Bristow said in a Twitter message written in Latin, after the university confirmed the request would be denied. Ohio State Senior Vice President Christopher Culley told Bristow last week that the university could not accommodate a request to rent space, but the lawyer held off suing while the institution looked into other potential venues, reported WASU. Paget sued Penn State University on Friday after officials rejected a request for Spencer to appear there as well. The University of Cincinnati last week ultimately decided they would uphold the First Amendment and allow Spencer to speak, after a threat of a lawsuit from Bristow. Paget, a Georgia State University student, has sought to secure venues for Spencer to speak on several campuses on behalf of the National Policy Institute. The most surprising thing about Attorney General Jeff Sessions testifying at the Senate Judiciary Committee's oversight hearing today is that he is still in officia at his January 10 confirmation hearing. Senators challenged his integrity, Russian connections and views on civil rights, crime and immigration. His Twitter happy boss, President Donald Trump, has since labeled him a disappointment and weak. Democrats, meanwhile, have been repeatedly appalled by Sessions' actions as Attorney General. Many have been furious since they learned he testified falsely about Russia on January 10. Despite all this, Sessions has accomplished far more than other cabinet members. The office of Attorney General is uniquely powerful under the U.S. Constitution. If the Attorney General decides an executive action is unlawful, it rarely moves forward as is. The Attorney General also litigates on behalf of most federal agencies. Most notably, the Attorney General is expected to act as the legal check on the President. The panel today is sure to test Sessions' stamina, the thickness of his skin and his power to defend and praise his boss. There is much to ask about Trump's travel ban, the offensive against sanctuary cities, national security surveillance and elimination of protections against gender identity-based discrimination. Here are some additional suggestions. Russia. This is Sessions' first appearance before the panel since his false denial of contacts with Russia's U.S. ambassador during the 2016 presidential campaign. The committee should seek to learn the full extent of those meetings. Once his Russian contacts were revealed, the new Attorney General announced his recusal from the FBI's Russia investigation. He should now detail the scope of his recusal, including why it should extend to personnel decisions that directly affect the investigation, such as the firing of FBI Director James Comey. Sessions has also never fully explained his role in the dismissal. When Sessions testified in June before the Senate Intelligence Committee, he refused to recount his conversations with the president. The Attorney General used a specious rationale: he wanted to preserve the president's ability to assert executive privilege in the future. The Democrats have sent notice that they now expect answers. The committee should also ask Sessions to state that he will not interfere with any aspect of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, including decisions whether to share evidence with Congress and to make public its findings. Voting. Sessions has cut back enforcement of the Voting Rights Act. His commitment to protect minority voters has long been suspect. The Senate rejected his judicial nomination in 1986 in part because of allegations regarding his prosecution of black civil rights activists for assisting voters. As Attorney General, Sessions withdrew the Justice Department's long-standing position that Texas photo ID law was intended to discriminate against minority voters. He has supported restrictive photo identification laws that disproportionately suppress minority votes. This argument dovetails with Trump's continuing and spurious claim that voter fraud cost him a popular vote victory. He has launched a commission to investigate, stocking the panel with partisans who have long histories of suppressing the vote. The Judiciary Committee must ask whether there has been any coordination between the days in when Associated Press park hikers may have died in sympathetic murder-suicide. San Francisco friends and relatives of a couple whose bodies were found in Joshua Tree National Park say they believe the two got lost while hiking in the sprawling desert park and struggled in the searing heat with little food or water before they died in a sympathetic murder-suicide. Rachel Nguyen, 20, and Joseph Orbzo, 22, had been missing for nearly 3 months after going for a hike in late July and failing to return to the bed and breakfast. The disappearance launched an exhaustive search. Crews spent more than 2,100 hours scouring the rugged terrain before finding the bodies in a steep canyon on October 15. Autopsies found both had gunshot wounds, and evidence at the scene led detectives to believe Orbzo shot Nguyen and then himself, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department said in a statement Friday. The stunning announcement came days after Orbzo's father, who was with searchers who made the discovery, said the bodies were locked in an embrace. The Orange County Register reports there was evidence the pair had been battling the elements. The bodies were under a tree, with clothing covering the legs to protect them from the blazing sun. They appeared to have been rationing food and had no water. Nguyen's family said investigators told them that based on the circumstances and positioning of the bodies, they believed the two died in a sympathetic murder-suicide. "We hold no grudges against Joseph or the Orbzo family," they said in a statement, and offered the condolences. "We thank God that we'll be able to give Rachel a proper burial and lay her to rest." As for authorities, Orbzo's actions remain under investigation, though his motive may never be known. "Since we don't have any evidence, no message to tell us why the shooting occurred, we're left to speculate," Sheriff's spokeswoman Cindy Bachman said. Knowing that they rationed food, had no water and were seeking shade certainly sheds a different light on the apparent dire circumstances. Orbzo and Nguyen had once dated, and he took her to Joshua Tree to celebrate her birthday, his best friend Austin Young told the newspaper. A gun found near the bodies was registered to Orbzo. Young said Orbzo worked as a security guard, and may have carried the gun to protect Nguyen. "I think they got lost and were suffering in 100-degree heat," Young said. "They had a choice of a slow and painful death or a quick death," he said. "And they made the choice of a quick death." The Joshua Tree Search and Rescue Team said on its Facebook page that it's easy to get lost in the vast park covering more than 1,000. House Speaker Paul D. Ryan R-Wis has a complex relationship with President Trump. He's more or less settled into a tripronged approach: publicly support the president as much as possible, publicly disagree with the president only when he has to, and stay out of drama as much as he can. So it was notable to hear Ryan take another tone entirely Thursday at a charity dinner, in a way that directly inserted himself into a story about him and the president making fun of Trump. Some of Ryan's jokes: "I don't think I've seen this many New York liberals, this many Wall Street CEOs in one room since my last visit to the White House. I know last year that Donald Trump offended some people at this dinner. I know how his comments, according to critics, went too far. Some said it was unbecoming of a public figure, and they said his comments were offensive. Well, thank God, HES learned his lesson. It was all in good fun at Thursday's Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation dinner in New York, where Ryan was the keynote speaker, and where, as the Associated Press' Steve Peoples pointed out, the program of the event encourages speakers to poke fun at a political issue, an opponent, or themselves. Ryan also made fun of Democrats. "I know why Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer DNY has been so hard on President Trump. It's not ideological. Chuck is just mad he lost his top donor, the Catholic Church, and himself every afternoon." Former Speaker John Boehner calls me up, not to give advice, just to laugh. Trump and his administration, though, were the main focus of his jokes. Him now second in line of succession since Steve Bannon has resigned. The press absolutely misunderstands and never records the big accomplishments of the White House. "Look at all the jobs the president has created, just among the White House staff." Breitbart will lead with Ryan slams the president among liberal elites. New York Times will report Ryan defends president in a state Hillary won. And the president will tweet 300,000 at Al Smith dinner cheer mention of my name. Ryan learned during the campaign that Trump doesn't tolerate criticism or perceived slights. Since Ryan endorsed Trump through Trump getting elected, Ryan denounced and disagreed with the president on average once every week and a half. When Ryan said he would actively support the president, Trump declared war on him and congressional Republicans. Both have said that the campaign is water under the bridge. Ryan continues to support the president on passing tax reform and repealing the Affordable Care Act, while speaking out when he doesn't agree with him, most notably after the president compared neo-Nazi marchers to counter-protesters in Charlottesville in August. "There is no moral relativism when it comes to neo-Nazis," Ryan said in a Facebook post. But Ryan's Al Smith speech also comes hours after former President George W. Bush delivered an unmistakable takedown of Trumpism. And Bush's speech came days after Sen. John McCain used his acceptance speech for a prestigious award to slam the president's foreign policy as half-baked spurious nationalism. McCain's speech came a few weeks after retiring Sen. Bob Corker of Tennessee called the White House an adult daycare and accused Trump of being incompetent enough to start World War III. Corker's attacks came a few months after Sen. Jeff Flake wrote a book that blames his party for the rise of Trump. For whatever reason, right now a growing number of Republicans feel like they can speak their mind about Aiken County Sheriff's Office deputies charged a Graniteville man Tuesday in connection to the shooting death of a 23-year-old man on Beckham Road in Warrenville. Albert Monted Davis, 31, is charged with murder, possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, possession of a stolen handgun, contributing to the delinquency of a minor and unlawful conduct to a minor, according to jail records. Investigators were called to a trailer park on Beckham Road at 3 p.m. Tuesday, where they found Timothy Raheem Johnson dead from a bullet wound to the chest, according to a release. Johnson died from exsanguination due to a gunshot wound to his torso, according to Aiken County Coroner Tim Carlton. Police spoke with witnesses who said Davis had given a 3-year-old child his handgun to chase the victim around the yard when the handgun was discharged, striking Johnson in the chest, the release states. Davis was arrested around 8 p.m. and taken to the Aiken County Detention Center, where he was still being held Wednesday afternoon. The ATF Rage Task Force, the Aiken County Solicitor's Office, SC Department of Social Services and the Aiken County Coroner's Office assisted with this investigation. This investigation is still ongoing. Information will be released when appropriate and as it becomes available. Anyone with information is asked to call the Aiken County Sheriff's Office at 8,036,486,811. Individuals may also call Crime Stoppers of the Midlands at 888-CRIMESC 8,882,746,372. Callers can remain anonymous and may be eligible for a cash reward up to $1,000. Trip Gerardo is the crime and courts reporter with the Aiken Standard. Follow him on Twitter at Trip Gerardo. 3 new public polls show next month's Virginia gubernatorial race within the margin of error. A Monmouth University poll, the most recently conducted of the surveys, all released Tuesday, shows Republican Ed Gillespie, a former Bush administration official and Republican National Committee chairman, in front of Democrat Ralph Northam, the Commonwealth's lieutenant governor, 48% to 47%. Story continued below. Libertarian Cliff Hyra is at 3% and 3% of likely voters are undecided. Last month, Northam had a 5-point lead in Monmouth's polling, 49% to 44%. The shifts in both candidates' vote shares are within the poll's margin of error of plus or minus 4.9 percentage points. Taken together, the Monmouth poll, along with new surveys from 2 Virginia schools, Christopher Newport University and Roanoke College, point to a close race in the most closely watched election of 2017. Both parties are using the Virginia contest to test drive messages and read tea leaves ahead of next year's midterms, when 36 states will hold gubernatorial elections. This has never been more than a 5-point race in Monmouth's polling, and that means either candidate has a very real shot at winning this thing, said Patrick Murray, director of the Monmouth University Polling Institute. Virginia voters are sharply divided along geographic lines, the Monmouth poll shows. Northam leads in Northern Virginia, defined as Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun and Prince William counties, along with the independent cities contained therein, by a 2-to-1 margin, 64% to 32%. but farther west in broad expanses of the Commonwealth west of Interstate 95, Gillespie leads by a nearly identical margin, 64% to 31%. As the northern and western parts of Virginia revert to their partisan norms, the battle for swing voters will occur right down the I-95 corridor, Murray said. The Monmouth poll suggests Gillespie's attacks. He has run television advertisements attacking Northam for what he says are the lieutenant governor's lax policies on immigration and crime, have moved the needle. Asked which candidate they trust to handle crime, 40% of likely voters say Gillespie, compared to just 24% for Northam, a wider margin than last month. The other two polls give Northam a slight lead. The Christopher Newport University poll shows Northam ahead of Gillespie, 48% to 44%. Hira, the Libertarian, is at 3% and 5% are undecided. By signing up you agree to receive email newsletters or alerts from Politico. You can unsubscribe at any time. Northam's lead has tightened from a week earlier when the Democrat was ahead by 7 points, 49% to 42%. The Roanoke College poll gives Northam a slightly larger 6-point advantage, 50% to 44%. Hira is at 2% and 4% are undecided. Last month, Northam led Gillespie by 4 points, 47% to 43%. Most polls throughout the general election have given Northam the edge. Without the Monmouth poll, but with the Christopher Newport and Roanoke surveys included, Northam leads the Real Clear Politics average by 5 points. The Monmouth poll was conducted October 12-16, Tampa, Florida. CBS, a serial killer might be on the loose in Tampa, Florida. Police are warning people not to walk alone at night in the Seminole Heights neighborhood after a third person in 10 days was shot to death on Thursday night. As CBS News correspondent Manuel Boyorquez reports, police seem certain the murders are all connected, even though the victims did not appear to know one another. Frightened residents did what they could to reclaim the streets of the neighborhood Friday night, chanting "Whose streets our streets" a day after 20-year-old Anthony Nyboa was found shot to death on a sidewalk. Nyboa, who was autistic, had just gotten off the wrong bus home from work when he was shot. His family knew something was wrong when he didn't come home. It's the most awful feeling that you can feel, that you know that your child is dead, and you have these people are coming to let you know, to confirm for you, said Maria Rodriguez, Nyboa's stepmother. It's very devastating. Police heard the shots that killed Nyboa. They had deployed extra patrols in the area after the 2 other murders in 10 days. Nyboa was shot about 100 yards away from where Benjamin Mitchell was killed on October 9. On October 13, Monica Hoffa's body was found in a vacant lot less than a mile away. She had been shot and killed 2 days earlier. Tampa police say they have no leads, and can't determine a motive. "We have someone who's terrorizing the neighborhood," Tampa Police Chief Brian Dugan said. On Friday, they released surveillance video of a person walking in the area when the first murder happened. They seem certain the murders are not a coincidence. Through the proximity and the time frame, they are related, Dugan said. There is Washington Sinclair Broadcast Group Sen. John McCain accepted the Liberty Medal on Monday due to his years of military service. In his speech, the senator criticized President Trump for what he described as half-baked, spurious nationalism. Trump responded to the senator's comment by saying, "I'm being very nice. I'm being very, very nice. But at some point I fight back, and it won't be pretty." The war of words between two of the most prominent leaders in the Republican Party has occurred many times ever since the 2016 presidential election. Test your knowledge to see. Executive Order amending Executive Order 13223 by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the National Emergencies Act 50 U.S.C. 1601 ASEQ, and in furtherance of the objectives of Proclamation 7463 of September 14, 2001 Declaration of National Emergency by reason of certain terrorist attacks, which declared a national emergency by reason of the terrorist terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 in New York and Pennsylvania and against the Pentagon, and the continuing and immediate threat of further attacks on the United States, and in order to provide the Secretary of Defense additional authority to manage personnel requirements in a manner consistent with the authorization provided in Executive Order 13223 of September 14, 2001, ordering the ready reserve of the armed forces to active duty and delegating certain authorities to the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Transportation, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1. Amendment to Executive Order 13223. Section 1 of Executive Order 13223 is amended by adding at the end the authorities available for use during a national emergency under Sections 688 and 690 of Title 10, United States Code, are also invoked and made available, according to the terms, to the Secretary concerned, subject in the case of the Secretaries of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, to the direction of the Secretary of Defense. Sec. 2. General provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency, or the head thereof, or either functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. B. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. C. This order is not intended to, and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. Donald J. Trump. The White House, October 20. President Trump tweeted Wednesday morning that not only was Rep. Frederica S. Wilson DFLA wrong about his conversation with a widow of a soldier killed in Niger, but also that he had proof of it. Yet some 8 hours later, Trump still hasn't produced any proof. And on Wednesday afternoon, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders seemed to admit that there was no proof after all. Asked whether the White House had a recording of Trump's call with the widow, Michelle Johnson, Sanders said it didn't. Wilson claimed in interviews that Trump crassly told Johnson on the call that her husband, Sergeant David T. Johnson, knew what he signed up for. Wilson also said the widow was dismayed that Trump didn't even seem to know Johnson's name. Johnson's mother confirmed the account to the Washington Post, but Trump disputes it. While declining to talk about the specifics of their conversation, Sanders said that it was completely respectful, very sympathetic, and that Trump expressed condolences. She also appeared to confirm at least one claim Wilson had made, saying, "Just because the president says your guy doesn't mean he doesn't know his name." While admitting that there was not a recording, Sanders noted that other top officials, including Chief of Staff John F. Kelly, were on the call. But that's not proof, or anything close to it. The only thing that could be proof would be a recording of the call. Nothing else will allow for any definitive verdict about what was said or the context of it. This all harks back, of course, to the time when Trump suggested there might be tapes of his White House conversations with then FBI Director James B. Comey. Trump and the White House left open that possibility for weeks, apparently to put pressure on Comey, before revealing that they weren't actually aware of the existence of such tapes. In that case, Sanders would say whether there were actually tapes. Eventually, after 6 weeks, Trump himself said he didn't know of any such tapes. In this case, Sanders is nipping that possibility in the bud right away. Another key difference is last time Trump didn't directly claim to have tapes, he just suggestively talked about whether they might exist. In this case, he said directly that he had proof. Yet again, the record shows he was bluffing. The man who hugged a Nazi outside Richard Spencer's speech at the University of Florida on Thursday said, "I could have hit him, I could have hurt him, but something in me said, you know what, he just needs love." A man wearing a t-shirt emblazoned with swastikas on Thursday was surrounded by a crowd of protesters who screamed, punched, and spat on him before Aaron Courtney gave him a hug. Courtney, a 31-year-old high school football coach in Gainesville, yelled, "Why don't you like me, dog?" as he wrapped his arms around the Nazi in a video that quickly went viral on social media. The Nazi was later identified as Randy Furness. Speaking to the New York Daily News early Friday, Courtney said, "It's a step in the right direction. One hug can really change the world." It's really that simple. Courtney said he didn't know who Richard Spencer was when he received a state of emergency notification on his phone on Monday. Politics for Dummies via Twitter. Florida Gov. Rick Scott declared the emergency ahead of Spencer's appearance at the school just 2 months after the white supremacist helped plan a far-right rally in Charlottesville, VA, that broke out in deadly violence. Surprised that the emergency declaration wasn't warning of a kidnapping or an impending hurricane, Courtney set out to do some research on Spencer. I found out about what kind of person he was, and that encouraged me as an African American to come out and protest. Because this is what we're trying to avoid. It's people like him who are increasing the distance between people, he said. Courtney, who spent nearly 4 hours protesting on Thursday, was getting ready to leave when he saw fires causing a commotion among the other demonstrators. I had the opportunity to talk to someone who hates my guts, and I wanted to know why. During our conversation, I asked him, "Why do you hate me? What is it about me? Is it my skin color, my history, my dreadlocks?" he told the Daily News. But the man simply looked off into the distance and brushed off his questions as Courtney pleaded with him and grew increasingly upset. Facebook. After beating around the bush and avoiding my questions, I asked him. I pleaded with him. I almost broke out in tears, growing increasingly angry because I didn't understand, he said. Citing the teachings of his father, who is a bishop, Courtney told the Daily News, "Something in me said, you know what, he just needs love. Maybe he never met an African American like this." And so he told the Nazi to give him a hug. And despite some initial resistance, Courtney said, "I reached over, and the third time, he wrapped his arms around me, and I heard God whisper in my ear, you changed his life." The crowd around them immediately reacted, and when Courtney pressed him again, 3 killed and 2 wounded are the result of a shooting Wednesday in an industrial area in Harford County, Maryland, just outside of Baltimore. Police are still pursuing the suspect, a 37-year-old man identified as Rady Prince. It is believed to be powered in a black GMC Acadia car with Delaware PCO 64273 plates. He is considered armed and dangerous. Search for suspect Radeelabeb Prince 115792008 black Chevy Acadia de tag PCO 64273. Call 911 if you see the suspect. Pig.twitter.com Fate Y18 Fu. Reese Witherspoon has alleged she was assaulted by a director as a 16-year-old. The Oscar-winning actress said she has been harassed and sexually assaulted throughout her career as she became the latest star to speak out in the wake of allegations against Harvey Weinstein. As she introduced her Big Little Lies co-star Laura Dern at Tells Women in Los Angeles event on Monday night, Witherspoon said this has been a really hard week for women in Hollywood, for women all over the world, for men in a lot of situations and a lot of industries that are forced to remember and relive a lot of ugly truths. She said she felt true disgust at the director who assaulted her when she was 16, as well as anger at the agents and producers who made me feel that silence was a condition of my employment. And I wish, following an emotional revelation about being sexually assaulted by a director at 16, Reese Witherspoon paid tribute to the women and men who, like her, have spoken up about the sexual harassment they've faced in the industry and beyond. "Last night felt like a sea change," the Oscar winner wrote in an Instagram post Tuesday. "A moment where women and men spoke up about harassment and the abuse of power in an open forum as a community that will not tolerate this behavior anymore. A new community determined to create change so young people who come after us will not have to feel shame or guilt that it does not belong to them," she continued. "I'm so encouraged that we are making a new path forward." During an event Monday evening, the Big Little Lies star joined the growing list of leading ladies who have claimed they've received unwelcome sexual advances while working in the film industry by opening up about how she has experienced it as well. "This has been a really hard week for women in Hollywood, for women all over the world, and a lot of situations and a lot of industries are forced to remember and relive a lot of ugly truths," she told the crowd on Monday. Related, Reese Witherspoon reveals she was sexually assaulted by a director at 16. Witherspoon revealed that she was not only sexually assaulted by a director but was also silenced after it happened. "I feel true disgust at the director who assaulted me when I was 16 years old, and anger at the agents and the producers who made me feel that silence was a condition of my employment," she said. adding that she felt less alone this week than SHES have ever felt in her entire career. Witherspoon continued, "I feel really." Oscar winners Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Lawrence used their speeches at a Hollywood event honoring women to detail experiences of assault and harassment at the hands of directors and producers and pledged to do more to stop such situations. Witherspoon told the audience at the Elle Women in Hollywood Awards on Monday night that the recent revelations of decades of sexual misconduct allegations against producer Harvey Weinstein had prompted her own experiences to come back very vividly. Witherspoon said she had true disgust at the director who assaulted me when I was 16 years old and anger at the agents and the producers who made me feel that silence was a condition of my employment. Reese Witherspoon at Elle's Women in Hollywood celebration in Los Angeles on Monday night. Frederick M. Brown Getty Images. Witherspoon didn't name the director. Her publicist didn't immediately respond to a request Tuesday for further comment. Lawrence detailed what she called a degrading and humiliating experience of being asked early on in her career to lose 15 pounds in 2 weeks for a role. She was then forced to pose nude alongside thinner women for photos that a female producer told her would serve as inspiration for her diet, she said. When she tried to speak up about the demands, Lawrence said she couldn't find a sympathetic ear from those in power. Related after Weinstein allegations, Rose McGowan emerges as major voice. "I was trapped, and I can see that now," Lawrence added. "I didn't want to be a whistleblower. I didn't want these embarrassing stories talked about in a magazine. I just wanted a career." Lawrence said it wasn't until she was an A-list star that she had the power to say no. Jennifer Lawrence at Elle's Women in Hollywood celebration in Los Angeles on Monday night. Frederick M. Brown Getty Images. Witherspoon expressed similar regret at not having been more vocal about her experience, saying she has felt anxiety about being honest and guilt for not having spoken out earlier or having taken action. For her part, Lawrence pledged to be an advocate for anyone who has ever felt threatened. U.S. Rep. Bob Goodlatte was one of the first members of Congress to view prototype walls that could line the border between the United States and Mexico. Goodlatte, Roanoke County, saw 6 different wall samples, all approximately 30 feet tall, while touring locations along the international border in Texas and California. The chairman of the House Judiciary Committee led committee members on a border tour this week as a way to inform the decision-making on immigration issues. The tour was closed to the news media. On a conference call with reporters Wednesday, Goodlatte said he and his colleagues were the first members of Congress to view the prototypes. Upon visiting portions of the border, it became clear to Goodlatte that a uniform border wall across the entire southern edge of the U.S. is not an effective strategy, he said. There are some places, such as near the San Diego sector of the border, where a wall could be effective, but there are other places where such an investment would be impractical, Goodlatte added. Goodlatte spoke of walking along a fence that divides the U.S.-Mexico border near San Diego. "The fence has 2,000 cuts into it," he said. "One of the issues there, of course, is how much wall do you need," Goodlatte said. "We're not going to build a wall that's 30 feet high along the entire 2,000 miles of our southern border, but walls in particular places, particularly where there's high-trafficked areas, where there's lots of criminal cartel activity on the other side, where there are major urban areas, walls are appropriate." The 6 wall prototypes, which stand next to each other, should be complete within the next 10 days, Goodlatte said. For that, they will be tested on their ability to withstand breaches and natural forces. The Department of Homeland Security will then determine which, if any, of the walls will be erected. The border wall, a priority of President Donald Trump, has divided congressional lawmakers. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a spending package this summer that would allocate $1.6 billion in initial funding for Trump's border wall. Critics of the barrier have denounced the wall as unnecessary and costly, and have said spending money on. Former Arkansas forward Bobby Portis was involved in an altercation that hospitalized Chicago Bulls teammate Nikola Mirotic, according to a report from Yahoo's Shams Charania. Sources: Bulls forwards Bobby Portis and Nikola Mirotic were involved in serious altercation in practice today, leaving Mirotic hospitalized and out indefinitely. Story coming. Shams Charania at Shams Charania, October 17, 2017. According to the full report, the altercation ended with an alleged punch from Portis to Mirotic's face. According to Shiranya, Mirotic is expected to be sidelined for the foreseeable future. According to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, Mirotic suffered a fractured bone in his face. In practice scuffle with Bobby Portis in Bulls practice, Nikola Mirotic suffered a fractured bone in his face, league source tells ESPN. Adrian Wojnarowski at WESP October 17, 2017. Portis and Mirotic were expected to be important parts of the Bulls roster this season. Portis, 22, is considered to be one of the NBA's potential rising stars. Through 2 NBA seasons, Portis is averaging about 7 points and 5 rebounds per game for the Bulls. He was the number 22 overall pick out of Arkansas in 2015. Update: Mirotic is reportedly home after a visit to the hospital. The Chicago Tribune's K.C. Johnson. Mirotic is home after going to hospital. He has 2 broken bones in his face and was evaluated for concussion. Woodhaven, Michigan State Police have confirmed an active shooter situation at the Ford stamping plant in Woodhaven on Friday, October 20, amid reports of an employee killing himself after being approached by officers. Woodhaven Deputy Police Chief Scott Fratchig told WXYZ the employee arrived at the plant located at 20,900 West Road in Woodhaven for a labor dispute with a gun, and he shot and killed himself after police arrived on scene. State Police confirmed the shooting around 10 a.m. Friday. The Michigan State Police's Detroit Post said on Twitter to avoid the area and warned of rumors about the shooting incident. A bomb squad responded to the scene to investigate a suspicious package which Michigan State Police said has since been cleared. Point 4. Troopers on the scene advised the scene is secure. Unattended package cleared and safe by MSPK9. Further details will come from WPD. pig.twitter.com 6 RDJNCQMSP Metro Detroit at Millspo Metro. October 20, 2017. Ford has confirmed in an emailed statement that employees at the Woodhaven stamping plant are safe after being evacuated as a result of the incident. According to Ford's website, the 360-acre Woodhaven stamping plant site opened in 1964. It employs 420 people and produces Santa Cruz Mountains, Calif. KGO crews are battling a raging fire in the Santa Cruz Mountains that started Monday night near Boulder Creek. At last check, it's burned at least 200 acres and mandatory evacuations remain in place. We woke to neighbors banging on the doors saying, "Get out of there, get out of there," said Boulder Creek resident Jane Woluta. The bear fire initially started as a structure fire before spreading to surrounding brush. Investigators are still trying to determine what caused it. The dry conditions aren't helping. All around us these madrone trees, these redwoods, and all of the litter on the floor burn almost as well as if they're dead fuel, said CAL FIRE spokesperson Angela Bernheisel. Because of the threat, more than 150 homes in a 4-mile diameter around the fire were evacuated overnight. One family found shelter at the Zayante fire station in Felton, which is one of 2 official evacuation centers. Video had to prepare for a wildfire evacuation. The packing up is a frantic time, said Woluta. Grabbing passports, grabbing phones, forgot the charges, grabbing toothbrushes, and a comforter here, a pair of boots there. At least 4 structures have been destroyed. So far the weather has been favorable for crews, but the steep terrain has been challenging to navigate. CAL FIRE officials say of the roughly 600 personnel currently on the ground, 5 firefighters have suffered minor injuries. Photos: crews battle wildfire in Santa Cruz Mountains when the material. Fox News ran a story on October 8 about a decorated Vietnam War Navy SEAL and glass artist who created an enormous presidential glass seal he hoped to give to President Trump. On Thursday, 11 days later, the network retracted the story after being told the Trump supporter never served in the SEALs or in Vietnam, much less earned commendations for his service. In the segment, John Garofalo, 72, a resident of New York State, said he served in the Vietnam War with a U.S. Navy SEAL team. Fox News reported that he also received 2 Purple Hearts and about 24 other medals for his service. The man's claimed record turned out to be a fabrication. It was first discovered by former Navy SEALs. Both these SEALs and family members of Garofalo contacted Fox News about the story, according to the Navy Times. Don Shipley, a retired SEAL, told the Navy Times that he contacted Fox on October 9, the day after the story ran. but the story was still on the news outlet's Facebook page on October 19. By then it had amassed 1.5 million views. Fox published a correction on Thursday. All of Garofalo's claims turned out to be untrue, Fox's correction stated. The fact is that he did not serve in Vietnam. He was never a U.S. Navy SEAL. Even though he showed us medals, Garofalo was not awarded 2 Purple Hearts or any of the other nearly 24 commendations he claimed to have received, except for the National Defense Service Medal. A Fox spokesman told the Navy Times it would run an on-air correction on Sunday. Fox News not withdrawing that story has drove me nutty. Don Shipley, a retired SEAL who tracks down and exposes bogus military service claims and was the first to obtain official records disputing Garofalo's story, told the Navy Times. In the retracted segment, Fox News reporter Brian Lenners repeatedly praised Garofalo for his service. Garofalo is used to working under pressure, Lenners said. The Vietnam War veteran served 7 years as a member of the nation's 1st Navy SEAL team. He was awarded 22 commendations, including 2 Purple Hearts. "You are a hero," Lenners told him. "God bless John Garofalo," another anchor said. "We certainly hope maybe the president is listening." Shipley said he reached out to Lenners via Facebook, telling him that Garofalo was not a Vietnam War veteran. "You can turn this story around," he told Lenners, according to the Navy Times. In its correction, Fox News said, "Over the last 2 weeks, we've worked with Garofalo's family and the National Personnel Records Center to get to the bottom of a military past that Garofalo had claimed to be covert." Garofalo served in the Navy from September 6, 1963, to September 6, 1967, according to military records obtained by the Navy Times. He told the newspaper he has been lying about being a Vietnam veteran and a Navy SEAL for years. President Donald Trump may have been able to keep former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio out of jail, but he can't change history. U.S. District Court Judge Susan Bolton on Thursday refused to wipe out Arpaio's misdemeanor conviction for contempt of court. "The power to pardon is an executive prerogative of mercy, not of judicial record-keeping," she wrote. Bolton said the pardon may have spared Arpaio from any punishment. It did not, however, revise the historical facts of his case, like the historical fact that the Sheriff's Department, under Arpaio, was found to have systematically racially profiled people as they conducted illegal immigration patrols, detaining people who were here, both legally and illegally. Like the historical fact that Arpaio was ordered by a federal judge to stop those patrols given the illegal manner in which they were conducted. Like the historical fact that Arpaio ignored the judge's order for 18 months and as a result was found guilty of contempt of court blatant enough to qualify as a crime, which will now remain on his record. Arpaio's legal team, and his pals in the Department of Justice, had contended that it was only fair to throw out his conviction because he wasn't eligible to appeal. And why, you might ask, couldn't Arpaio appeal? Because he accepted a presidential pardon. That excuses Arpaio from punishment for something he did. It doesn't, however, wipe out what he did. Seems to me there was an easy resolution here if Arpaio really wanted to wipe his record clean. If he truly believed. Updated 102-02-017, 9:04 p.m. Hello Rosemont authorities have officially closed their investigation into the death of Kenneka Jenkins, concluding it was accidental. The village's public safety department issued a 4-page news release Friday afternoon detailing the findings of its investigation into the September 10 death of the 19-year-old Chicago woman, whose body was discovered in a freezer of the Crowne Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel. The department also made available records relating to the investigation on the village's website, including police reports, video surveillance footage, 911 and police dispatch calls and photographs. While there were many theories, rumors and much speculation floating around social media regarding the death of Ms. Jenkins, none were supported with facts, Chief Donald Stevens III said in the release. While all leads and theories were investigated by our department, what we have reported throughout the investigation and again today are the facts. We have spent countless hours to ensure that we completed the most thorough and complete investigation possible. The accidental death ruling comes exactly 2 weeks after the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office made the same determination. The officer's report listed the official cause of death as hypothermia, though it noted alcohol and topiramate, a medication used to treat epilepsy and migraines, as contributing factors. Jenkins had a blood alcohol level of 0.112, the autopsy found. Rosemont authorities on Friday said detectives found no signs of foul play, or evidence Jenkins was forced to drink alcohol or consume any drugs while at the hotel. On Thursday, Jenkins' mother, Teresa Martin, and sister, Leonora Harris, met with detectives for an update on the case and viewed the photographs released to the public Friday. The family's attorneys said the requests to review all reports, photographs and videos were denied. Frankly, the photos depicting how Kenica was found raise more questions about what happened to her than they answer, attorney Larry Rogers Jr. said. Rogers filed a legal motion October 6 asking that the Crowne Plaza be ordered to preserve evidence. Police say Jenkins' body was discovered by a hotel worker at 12:25 a.m. in a walk-in freezer inside a walk-in cooler. That was about 21 hours after video surveillance documented her walking into an unused first-floor kitchen. There's one motion-censored still camera near the freezer, but it doesn't show the freezer door, Rosemont authorities said Friday. They also revealed that from the time Jenkins entered the kitchen to the time her body was discovered, only one person, a hotel security guard, entered the kitchen as he was making his normal rounds. But he didn't get close to the freezer and was never out of sight of the camera, police said. During the investigation, police generated 135 reports and conducted interviews with 44 people, including 30 who were with Jenkins at a hotel party the night she went missing. 6 more people believed to have been in the room haven't been interviewed, as they've been identified only by street names. Friends or associates have provided little cooperation in finding them, according to the Rosemont release. Meanwhile, police said they are still looking for a man and a woman who have ties to a gang on the west side of Chicago and used a fraudulent credit card to pay for the hotel room where the party occurred. Roy Moore at a campaign rally on September 25. Scott Olson. Getty Images. Roy Moore, Alabama's Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate, said NFL players who kneel during the national anthem are breaking the law. It's against the law, you know that, Moore said in an interview.